He's not going to split them on the middle.
He's going on board with John Houillard. Houillard's going to commit. He comes off the inside. There's no one, and he's going to spin it. He tried his best. How did he catch it? John Houillard.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, and welcome to VWSC's running of the 100 minutes of Road Atlanta. I'm Ross Smith, and joining me in the booth today, we'll be taking over head comm duties, is Chris Melbourne. Chris, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you.
Anytime, and Road Atlanta is a very special place in my heart. I remember growing up playing multiple racing games, and Road Atlanta was always the first track I'd always ever come across for some reason. So very excited to be racing here this weekend at Road Atlanta. And of course this weekend is quite exciting as well because we are having the penultimate round of the championship. However, despite it being somewhat open, we already have one or two categories already locked up for the teams, which is quite interesting. Already the second to last race. We'd like to have it go all the way down to the wire, but some teams have scored enough points to actually be crowned victorious already before we get to the final. But on the other side of the field, we have plenty of action today because we have plenty of drivers and teams that are in contention, and one wrong move, if they finish somewhere even lower than 8th position on the track, they will not be crowned champion. They will have to go all the way down to the very last lap of the very last race of the season. So things are going to get very, very interesting here today.
Excited to say that I am in one of those positions, so you know, my heart's pounding a little bit, but we're going to stay cool. It's going to be good. And while we're talking about where we are right now, obviously 100 minutes of Road Atlanta. Coming up next week is the 230 kilometers of Mexico City for the 1991 season. And then the last weekend of the month will round out with a topless race. And then right after that one, it's packed, right, bookending the year, is the final race of the season, the 80 minutes of Bahrain, which is right in your little sector of the world.
Yeah, it certainly is. Like, it's sort of somewhat treated as a home race here for me, isn't it? It's about an hour's flight away from where I'm currently situated, so that'll be very exciting as well. But it's a long break between this penultimate round here in the current format, so the Hypercar and the GTs. But of course we do squeeze in the 291 category races in between the two here. But of course with the VWSC, the Hypercar and the GT fields, we have plenty of action to watch around because we have two classes essentially, and then we have subclasses within those classes. So we have anyway, I think it's up to 6 different classes essentially between all of them, because we've got Hypercar, we've got Hypercar AM, we've got GT, we've got the GT AM. We've even got the teams to sort out as well. So there's going to be plenty of things here to watch out for in this race here around Road Atlanta. And I can see already on our timing screen here, we're up to 21 drivers. That could be extended ever so slightly. I don't know if Ross is talking and driving. I don't think he is. I think that might be a bit too much to ask for at the moment.
Not yet. No. I'm gonna leave the broadcast in your capable hands here momentarily, but I definitely wanted to get things started and talk with you through the upcoming standings here. And as you mentioned, it's a pretty exciting situation here as we take a look at the Hypercar standings as they are. With and just a quick note, the top team there, CMS Pro, switching to the Toyota for the last 2 races this season, using up their wild card switch and taking that out, even though they wrapped up, as you mentioned, the Hypercar Championship.
It is an interesting one here to use it in the penultimate round as well, because they were so strong in the Bugatti Bolide throughout the entire season here. And for Dan Kirby, he can clinch the title here today if Johnny Wan finishes 3rd or worse. If Johnny Wan finishes 1st or 2nd, we'll go all the way down to the wire. But if Johnny Wan finishes outside of the top 2, Dan Kirby will be crowned victorious here at Road Atlanta. For the teams, CMS Pro have already locked up the championship. They are officially the champions there with 314 points. Of course, when you have both drivers, they're already in the top 2. That's a huge amount of points, plus it's a huge advantage for them as well. They have nothing to worry about in terms of the point standings in teams. For the Hypercar AM, there are just 3 points separating first and third, which is unbelievable. There you see the score. Jerry Chen, Eric Mornay, and Ross Smith, who is currently with us in the booth. He is in contention for the Hypercar AM title here. He's going to have to keep his head in the game. I think we might have to let him go soon enough so he can get into some practice time here before the start of the race to ensure that he can stay in this title fight when we go to Bahrain in about a month's time. So leader has 198 points to 195, and then 194 between Jerry Chen, Eric Mornay, and Ross Smith, and then all the way down in 4th position, Matthew Overton, unfortunately, with 120 points to his name. He's 74 points, unfortunately, not enough points on offer for him to be in contention. So it's going to be a great fight today here with 3 drivers that will be contesting for the championship that will be decided in a month's time. In the Hypercar AM for the teams, Flying Kiwi Racing needs to outscore the Storm Rider Noon by just 17 points to be crowned champion. So that championship is still, I don't want to say it's wide open, but there is still a possibility that it could fluctuate towards the way of Storm Rider instead of Flying Kiwi Racing. But let's see how this pans out at the end here. For the GT, Brandon Gant just needs to finish 7th or better to become champion. Now that's going to be, I'm not going to say it's going to be an easy task because the GT field is very competitive. We've got GT, we've got GTM, and it's always very competitive. It was a fantastic showing. You can see we've had over 20 drivers participate already this season. I see that Ahmed Abdullah is actually back. Haven't seen him for a while. I think I haven't seen him since Le Mans a couple of months ago. It's a great to see him, and he's going to be really finding it hard, and he's not going to make it easy at all for the GT drivers that are in contention. So as you said, Brandon Gant is 7th or better to ensure that he is victorious here, and we can wrap up the championship at the end of the day. For the GT teams, HBD needs to score just 1 point to be champion, and let's see what position exactly they need to finish to get that 1 point. They would need to finish 10th, and they get that 1 point. Oh, but yeah, actually no, they need to at least finish the race to get that 1 point. They must, yes, so they must be in 10th place or lower. Actually, maybe they could be 11th or lower, actually, I can't think of it. In the class classification of this race, and they will be victorious. So, very easy to get that 1 point, but at the same time, it's very easy to not score that point because we don't know what's going to happen now within the next 100 minutes of Road Atlanta. This is racing, and anything can happen.
As the real Road Atlanta showed us last weekend, it's never over till it's over. Right at the very end. No spoilers though.
In the GTM category, the voice is out for the remaining 2 races of GT work commitments. James Alechki, who's been very strong over the past couple of race weekends, and as Tom Lane, it may not have fared well in the 1991 series, but however, when it comes to GT, Tom Lane has been mighty fast, and either of the 2 of them here could be crowned champion. They have 174 for Alechki and 169 for Tom Lane. That's a deficit there of 5 points either way, so either one of the 2 could wrap up the championship, but oh wait, hang on a sec. No, mathematically, no, it wouldn't be possible because it would go down to what? Yes, it would actually go all the way down to Bahrain today, depending on where they finish. So I think there's still enough points for either one of them to not finish the race or score that 1 point. They do, and then go all the way to Bahrain in a couple of weeks. So Tom Lane is using his 1-3 car switch, which is going to be kind of strange because I'm used to him driving that Mustang. He's now going to swap over to the McLaren 720S. Now, is that the right move? We'll have to wait and see because he's been quite aggressive in that Mustang, and he's been quite fast as well. But let's see what he can do with the McLaren. So the reason that he's done this is because he's expecting the Mustang to kind of suffer. Maybe it was a bit too heavy for the curves that we have here at Road Atlanta and in Bahrain. So he's trying to maximize his chance of scoring enough points and not have an issue out on track to ensure that he can take it all the way down to the wire here. In the GT AM category, for the teams, Trash Panda Racing are officially champions. They will not be caught with 308 points to Stardust Autosports 174 points. So done and dusted for Trash Panda. I don't know what I said there. Trash Panda Racing are the ones that have locked it up already, even despite Matt Boise not being here for the next 2 races. So done and dusted. They've done their job. A-OK, we're done with that. So we need to sort out who's going to be the champion of GT AM, GT teams, the GT drivers, Hypercar AM teams, Hypercar AM drivers, and that is what we have to keep a close eye on here this weekend.
Quick look at
Here is the... Oh, sorry, Ross. You can
after
probably
you.
talk
So just a quick note on the track. Of course, we have our typical orange zone for the race, which is where penalties are more aggressive on the opening lap. However, for this race, there's a permanent orange zone through the S's to discourage some of the more aggressive overtakes that you've seen in both sim and real world racing. So that will be in effect. It's that red area right there that's highlighted between turns 3 and the exit of turn 5, which keep an eye on turn 5 because the sand trap there is absolutely deadly, and drivers have been finding that out as they push too far off of that turn 5 curbing, and it can be quite violent. So keep an eye on that. There'll obviously be some situations down at turn 10 A and B. We saw that Thursday night coming off that final corner when you get congestion and drivers desperately trying to get on the throttle for that long run down into turn 1. It's going to be spicy.
Now, you're obviously going to get behind the wheel of your car soon enough. What do you think is going to be the most difficult part of the track today, and what's the corners that you're going to watch out most of all? I mean, I know you said turn 5 and the final corner as well, but are there any other hotspots that you think will be turning up throughout this race?
Oh, absolutely. You'll see through that first sector leading up to the S's, Hypercars will be desperate to clear as much traffic as possible, so that way they're not stuck and slowed going through the S's, especially as they get into their own battles. You'll see that the trailing car, if they're making any sort of progress on the car in front of them, they'll do everything they can to get by, and you'll start to see tempers flare, especially as the GT drivers lose a little bit of patience of being scuffled out of the way, and they'll fight back, as you saw in the real race, and that's going to lend itself to interesting conversations after the race for sure. But after that, it's mostly clear sailing. You know, you've got your typical drives down into turn 6 and 7. Those will be some good passing opportunities. The long backstretch, of course, will be an ideal opportunity for hypercar drivers to make their passes, and then it starts all over again once they clear that final section. It's a lap at fluid landing.
And of course, it offers plenty of elevation changes. It offers plenty of challenges as well, because we've got long straights that have kinks in them. We've also got very quick corners as well, where the S's are, where we have that permanent orange zone, excuse me. Just what exactly are the penalties that we've dished out here? How harsh are the how hard are the officials going to go on the drivers if they, decide that they want to do their own thing through the S's there?
So for some of the avoidable contacts that happen, certainly if it's enough to compromise someone's race, they could be slapped with a stop-and-go penalty on the next race, or at least a drive-through for this series, somewhat in the 91s where they have to slow them down. But if they did it in the S's, let's say, and even just maybe detained a driver for about 5 seconds or so, threw him off the track a little bit without much else, that could still be a stop and hold for 30 seconds on the following race, which at Bahrain that's rough. I mean, you're well back behind, and that's your competition. Change out tires if they want, just gap you extensively, clear more traffic. I mean, it's very costly, and all the way up to if you've managed to really jeopardize someone's race, just sending them off into the barriers. It could be a do not qualify plus a stop and hold for 60 seconds. I mean, it will be context dependent, but it can be very severe.
Now, just to add to the intensity of today's race, 100 minutes of Road Atlanta, the time has been set tonight here, and well, while the track isn't purposely built to be illuminated all around. There are lights scattered all over the place, and of course the cars are all fitted with high-intensity headlights and all these kind of things to ensure they can see most of the track, but with plenty of crests and hills in certainly some of these sectors that are pretty fast as well. You're essentially going in blind in some of these corners as well, so of course this is going to add an extra degree of intensity here in today's race. So it looks like we've got some practice going on. Ross, I think we'll let you go, and I think you can hop behind the wheel to get some much-needed practice in it, because of course you do have that championship fight, and of course we are rooting for you here in the box, because of course we're going to have a chat with you later on and take it all the way down to Bahrain in about a month's time here. So
Yes, yeah, thank you. And you called it right. Yep, this will be definitely very interesting as we go through all the different lighting conditions. And I'm hoping my hardware will stick with me. It was not having a great time Thursday, so that's going to be on my mind. But thank you again for all you're doing. I will catch you later, hopefully, and good luck with the race, everyone.
Good luck, Ross, and hopefully we'll see you on the podium and hopefully on the top step of the podium as well. So live track action at the moment is practice for the time being before we obviously go into qualifying. The drivers will have their driver briefing as well, so we might see a little bit of the track, and then we know cars out on track, but then it's because of course they'll be doing their drivers briefing, and of course then we have the 100 minutes of Road Atlanta here at the home of the Petit Le Mans in Brazelton, Georgia, one of the most iconic tracks in the world of GT racing in the United States of America. So today we have two classes of racing here. We have the Hypercar, and then we have GT. They are separated into Hypercar and Hypercar AM, and then GT and GT AM. In terms of the cars that we have running here today, we have the Aston Martin AMR Pro Valkyrie, which is powered by a naturally aspirated V12 6.5-litre petrol engine that revs all the way up to about 10,000 RPM. Now, it's average on the straightaways, but quite fast through the corners. So it's a little bit of mix of both of the best of both worlds, you could say, although it is not as fast in the straight line compared to the Bugatti Bolide, which I have a feeling we may not see out today on a track, because Dan Kirby will not be racing in that car. We're used to seeing him behind the wheel of it, but unfortunately he will not be there. He'll be using the Toyota GR010 instead, which is powered by a 3.5-litre twin-turbo V6 with slightly less RPM there, about 7,500 is where it redlines. However, it is one of the quicker cars through the corner. Actually, it is the quickest car through the corner. It's got good mechanical grip, so that may play to his advantage here, especially when it comes to the S's here. It's a bit slow on the straightaways, but the only one that he's got to really worry about is the straightaway. I don't want to say it's the back straightaway, because the back straight is actually quite short. Actually, it's that straightaway that's on the opposite side of the track going through sector 3, which he has to be a little bit more careful through there. The fastest car on the straights, though, is the Koenigsegg Jesko, powered by the 5.1 twin-turbo V8, redlining at 6,750 RPM. So again, it's quite significantly lower in comparison to the Aston Martin AMR. And unfortunately, the Jesko actually struggles a lot through the corners, doesn't have as much mechanical grip compared to the likes of the Toyota. So this might be the reason, we said before, this is why Dan Kirby has changed to this car. He uses one free change here in the VWSC Hypercar and GT race, the 100 minutes of Road Atlanta. We do have the Glickenhaus SCG 007C. We have the Lamborghini SCV12 Essenza, with the McLaren Senna GTR, the Mercedes AMG 1, which I actually think made its debut only a couple of weeks ago, actually, because I think it was the first time I actually saw it around on track here before anyone else raced it. Then we have the Pagani Huayra Imola, which I know that Walter de Bruyn will be using, because there he is he's actually in the garage. You can't just quite see him here, but he'll be behind the wheel of one of those. And then we have the Porsche 90804 as well. So a good mix of cars here that are they're slow to about the fastest through on the straightaway, with only the Koenigsegg Jesko being the quickest of them. The majority of them are quite quick on the straightaways, but that one is the quickest, and that one being the Jesko. Now in the GT category, we have the Acura NSX Evo, which is about average on the straight line, but it's the Ford Mustang that's actually the fastest car on the straights. Now Tom Lane, who is in a championship fight here in the GTM category, has decided he doesn't want to use the Ford Mustang because it's a little bit more volatile when it comes to the corners. He's a bit worried that it might unsettle the car a bit too much, and he might just lose out, and he may lose his title here here at Road Atlanta before we go into the final race. So he decided to switch it up into one of the more stable cars through the corners, and that is the McLaren 720S, which actually also happens to be the fastest car through the corners. So a lot of mechanical grip there with the McLarens. That's really going to help Tom Lane's championship fight here. There is Walter de Bruyn. That doesn't look like a Pagani. That looks like a Koenigsegg by the looks of it. So I think he might have swapped cars, or the screen is wrong. I haven't been updated if he is using the Koenigsegg. Is he using the Koenigsegg? We'll wait and see when he comes through again. But that looked like a Jesko. That definitely didn't look like a Pagani at all. We've also got in the GT field, we've got the Aston Martin Vantage, we've got the Audi R8 LMS, we have the Bentley Continental, the huge, essentially the land yacht you could call it. Very beautiful looking car though. I do have a very soft spot for that vehicle, but it's just so huge. I don't know how the drivers chuck it around the corners. No doubt we'll see at least two of them on track. We've got the BMW M6 with the 4.4 litre twin-turbo V8. We've got the beautiful Corvette Chevrolet C8 that now has the engine in the back of the car instead of the front, giving it better weight distribution here around Road Atlanta. Of course, that was the change from the C7 to the C8. We've got the Ferrari 488 with the Ford Mustang as well. I don't actually think anyone's going to be using the Mustang here this weekend. It's majorly Tom Lane, who was the driver of that car, and probably the one that made it so synonymous with this year's championship. We've got the Lamborghini Huracan Evo 2, the Lexus RCF. We haven't seen actually much of the Lexus over the past couple of races that we've had here in the VWSC GT categories. But it would be great to see if we do get one out there. I don't think we actually do have one out on track. I do have the list in front of me here. I'll have a quick browse, and I don't see the word Lexus anywhere, so unfortunately no Lexus represented today. Then we've got the McLaren 720S, as we discussed before, which Tom Lane is now piloting with a number of other drivers as well. We have the Mercedes AMG GT, followed by the Nissan GT-R Nismo, and of course one of the most iconic race cars on the planet, the Porsche 911. Now, in terms of the assists that the drivers will be using here today, Hypercar Pro are the fastest hypercar drivers. They have onboard TC, but they have absolutely no assist here in rFactor 2. So it is a little bit more tricky for the drivers there. In Hypercar Am, don't like using this word here, but let's just say they're just not as, say, quick as the hypercar drivers are. They are, they're getting up to speed. They're kind of getting the grips with the car and the category as a whole. They have onboard TC, but no assist as well in rFactor 2 here. In GT Pro, they are the faster of the GT drivers. They have TC and ABS there, so it's got traction control and ABS on board. GT Am, again, these are the drivers that are maybe not in contention for a GT category right here, despite them being a lot of the times actually faster than some of the GT drivers, which we've seen again over the past couple of races. They are, again, I hate to use the word, they're slower, which they really aren't. They're learning the ropes. They're getting used to racing here in the GT category. And of course, next year, a lot of them will be promoted into the GT field. No doubt Tom Lane will be one of them. He's certainly put on an absolute fantastic show here this season. Same with Ross Smith as well. They also have onboard traction control and ABS here. And those are the multitude of cars here, and this is what I really love about Hypercar and GT racing, is just the sheer mix of cars that we have on display. Now, we have so many that we might not actually see all of them on track, so pick your favorite, whatever brand that you do choose to follow along. You'll most likely spot one of them here in this weekend's race with 11 minutes to go, or just over actually 11 minutes to go here in the session of practice. After this, we'll go into qualifying, but before that, I think we'll have a driver's briefing, so momentarily we might not see some action on track, as the driver's briefing will be underway for the drivers. Then we'll set the field up for the 100 minutes of Road Atlanta, the home of Petit Le Mans, and then we may or may not crown a champion in some of the categories here in the Champion Motorsports 2022 Virtual World Sports Car Championship, presented by Storm Gang Simulation here. This is going to be quite the exciting race here, well, buckle up. We have time left on the clock that's not ticking down anymore, so we still have some time left in practice here. Now, I would like to say that it's my computer that is having an issue like it did last time out, but it's not. It is just frozen for some reason, is the timing screen for me. But it says that we have under 3 minutes. So actually, that clock froze quite a long time ago, actually. which is surreal. Well, Phil has just informed us that the overlays are not responsive, so that explains it. So we do have less than 3 minutes to go here on the clock before the end of this session. So we'll have a brief break here for briefing, and of course we will have the qualifying session that will set the field up, and then we will go into this the race, which of course will be a rolling start here around Road Atlanta. This one, as we said, is going to get exciting, so make sure you've got a comfy chair and you've got plenty of liquids to carry you through this race here. Lots of action. We'll talk you all the way through it as well around Road Atlanta using the Grand Prix course here, despite them not running a technical Grand Prix in the sense of Formula One, but they do of course run GP in the terms of IMSA racing over in the United States of America. They are also called Grand Prix. Now, when it comes to fuel, tyre wear, and etc., they are turned on to challenge the drivers here to ensure that racing online is as close as we can get to racing in real life, because of course, yes, we are racing on computers, but we want to simulate it as much as possible to ensure it's as much as like the real thing as humanly possible, which makes things very interesting. Of course, the drivers do have to think about a lot of things as well. Strategy is a huge part, as we've seen over the past couple of races as well. One of the most interesting strategies that I saw was a driver, I think it was actually Tom Lane who tried to do this in the 1991 race a couple of weeks ago. He tried to do an entire race on one stop while everyone else did 2 and 3 stops here, and he actually managed to get all the way to the end on some magnificent fuel-saving drives there, which when he admitted when it came down all the way to the wire, if he had 1 lap to go, it may have been a completely different output, and he may not be in contention for this championship here as well. We're looking at Walter de Bruyn, who seemed to have stopped at the top of the crest of the hill. Now, I do wonder if he's having a slight issue, because we've seen him go in and out of the pit lane now multiple times here in this session. I do hope all will be well for him, because he's a very rapid driver indeed, and if he's not up to speed here in the hypercar category, we will sorely miss him, because, as we said, he always puts on an absolute clinic and makes things very, very exciting, as do all the other drivers here as well. Now, I do apologise for the timing. It is not counting down as it should do, so we are running the sessions to schedule at the moment, and qualifying has officially ended now. Sorry, not qualifying. Practice has officially ended. It's officially struck 0 on the clock, and we'll be going to the qualifying episode in the near future. Near future. This is probably the wrong word to use. It sounds like we're going to do it tomorrow or something. No, we're going to do qualifying pretty much straight after this, as all the drivers will return to the pit lane. Although it does show that there are a few... No, the checker flag has just been displayed on my timing screen here, so that means officially this session is over. The quickest man out there at the moment, or currently with the session ended now, was Brian Hall in the Hall Brothers Racing Lamborghini, with a lap time of 1:08.529. Now, can he replicate that in qualifying? Let's wait and see. Now, someone has turned up the lights here by the looks of it in quali. Now, I wonder if this will stay this way, or we will transition back to nighttime, because, of course, with the nighttime there, with the moon shining, I guess you could say. The moon doesn't shine; it reflects the sun, doesn't it? With the moon hanging in the sky adds that extra degree of difficulty. But this is the joys of racing online, right? We can switch the time whenever we feel like it. We can essentially control time, which I think most drivers would love to do in real life. It's, of course, not race at night, because it does have that extra degree of difficulty, although it's quite a fun challenge. Probably not what exactly you want. When you have racing during the day, it's much easier to spot. But again, we have to be very careful with the word racing during the day, because it's racing during the day at a certain time. You don't want it when the sun hangs low down in the sky, because that when it glints in your eyes, it is the most awkward thing on the planet. It can really throw you off as well. But qualifying now officially underway here at Road Atlanta. Now, I'll be using what I see on the timing screen rather than what's actually on the screen. Unfortunately, the overlays have decided they would like a break here before we start the race. So we'll see where everybody is on track. But the first of the drivers have made it way. Actually, you're going to say first drivers. There's quite a few drivers that have already made their way on track. over, well, at least 10 drivers have already made their way out of the pit lane here at Road America. Now, I've just realised why I kept thinking Walter de Bruyn is not in the Pagani Imola, because the overlay has decided to take a rest before the start of the race. That's why it doesn't make any sense to me. So he is actually driving the car, but that was the confusion there from my side. So first drivers now across the line to complete their out lap, now officially starting their first flying lap, and the track is already getting busy. We have 29 cars here racing this weekend into our 4 categories, essentially. As we said, Hypercar, Hypercar AM, GT and GT AM. Determining who's going to be the quickest of all of the classes, it's impossible. We cannot figure that out right now, because we've seen it, we've tried to guess it in the past, and it's never worked out in our favour at all. It's always gone the other way, and we look like complete muppets because we haven't figured out who exactly is the fastest till the end of the session. So let's wait to the end here of the 20-minute qualifying session here to set the field up here for 100 minutes of Road Atlanta, and find out then who will be the quickest of the 4 categories, that is. So let's see. No one's put a time yet. However, we've got a couple of drivers going purple, including Ahmed Abdullah in the GT category, who has gone purple through Sector 1 and Sector 2. Jamie Zaleczki went through Sector 2 with the fastest time momentarily, however was quickly beaten by Ahmed Abdullah, who is back here with us this weekend in his Ferrari 488. Last time out was my story at Le Mans. He was behind the wheel of the AMG GT. But he is quickest of all here in the GT category. He, of course, is in the GT category, not GTM. Jimmy Gillespie is quickest in GTM, as he's gone second fastest over 1.1 seconds behind Ahmed Abdullah. Craig Dans goes third fastest. Tom Lane shoots his way up the order, up and down to second place. Up his McLaren. This looks like Ahmed Abdullah car at the moment. He's gone through the wall. It's like he's gone into the pit lane, so he may be done and dusted for now. He might wait and bide his time, but yeah, he's going to go straight back out there. I think he just wants the chance to have clean air in front of him and not have to worry about what the car in front of him is going to do through the next corner, or if he doesn't even see the car go through the next corner, because again, we've got quite a few blind crests here at Road Atlanta, which add to the extra degree of difficulty during the race and during qualifying as well. So more laps coming into the books now. Interesting enough, we haven't had a lot of the hypercar drivers actually go through and basically into qualifying times, excuse me. They haven't just yet, so we'll see how that shifts. At the moment we have the GT stream, and that's because we have 10 minutes of GT and then 10 minutes of hypercar. That's why they're separated into 2 qualifying sections to kind of evens the playing field, because if you have them both going at the same time, you'll kind of feel like they're having a race before an actual race, cause some upset and some drama. So it's best probably just to have what we're doing here is the 2 10-minute sessions. That's why they're all sat in pit lane still. So looks like we have a total of 14 drivers here in GT. Ahmed Abdullah, of course, in the field by a second over Tom Lane and James Leckie in third for Star Autosports in his Aston Martin Vantage. Which will is now going 4 fastest over his HPD Acura NSX. He is 2.2 seconds from Ahmed Abdullah, but he is 1 second off of Jamie Zaleczki's time. Now GRS Roland Hagenaz in 5th in his Corvette C8. Craig Downs in the mighty heavy Bentley Continental GT there in 6th position for Reptile Racing. Yellow Henian in the JR Racing car now just moved down into 8th position as Stephen Miller now goes 6th fastest around Road Atlanta. Just I think what we could do is stay up to date with the timings. As I said, unfortunately the overlays that we have on the screen not playing nice today. They've already taken a well-deserved break here, but we do have live timing. We can tell you that Ahmed Abdullah is the man who's leading by 0.5 of a second now, because Timon Suvic has shot his way up the order now behind the wheel of his 911 for Kowalski Motorsport, bumping Tom Lane down to 3rd. And actually, I think we have, well, I think we've got 14 minutes left on the clock now. Do you have 4 minutes left in the session or 20 minutes left in the session? If we look at the timing, it says 10 minutes for GT, 10 minutes for Hypercar.
Yeah, they'll get the one to go at 11 minutes left in the session.
Should you not be qualifying, Ross?
Sorry, I just hopped in to check things out a little bit, just stretch my legs before qualifying. But yeah, just how's everybody doing?
Well, we're waiting for the overlays to play nice, but yes. So during your practice session there earlier today, what's your thoughts now going into the race? How does it fare racing here around at night? Seeing as we've now kicked over today, is it more of a disadvantage to race at night time, or is it more fun? How do you feel on track?
Well, I imagine there'll be some attrition, so there'll be fewer cars to contend with, but it probably won't feel that way as we're screaming around there. I would say that it's a little bit easier than going into the dusk, because as you go through the S's, you're just blinded coming over the crest and heading down through the turn 3 right-hander and as you proceed through. So it's very difficult to pick out your marks on that side of the track, but once it goes to nighttime, it's a little bit more convenient, but then you've got the headlights and performance can suffer if the machine's not up to it. So and of course people get tired, cars are used up. It's an evolving situation, I'd say.
So if I'm not mistaken, we've only got a few minutes left in the session now before the Hypercars will make their way out on track. So we've had a total of 17 drivers put a lap time in, and after that, well, I see now we're up to 31 drivers now. There's a few more that actually are in the GT category that have yet to put a time in. So GT very, very busy here. As you said, there's almost 20 drivers here that will be contesting for an all-important front row start here around Road Atlanta, as I think Ross Smith has now gone off to get ready for his qualifying session that will start soon. Of course, he's racing in the Hypercar category, and of course racing for a championship here as well this weekend, or to at least stay in the championship, and we wish him all the best, and hopefully we'll be bringing him back here at the end of the session to have a quick chat with him, if he's of course on the top step of the podium. But of course, no doubt it's going to be quite a tough one out there today. So we're riding on board here, not with John Mayer by the looks of it, because that is not John Mayer's car. We're on board with one of the Porsches at the moment. As we work our way, we've just gone out of the S's there and over now onto towards the back straightaway towards the second half of the track here. And there is the John Mayer Honda NSX. It's not a Honda, is it? It's an Acura NSX, isn't it? We call it Honda here, so I'm so used to calling it Honda. It's an Acura. Got to remember that. But yes, he is one of a few drivers here racing in the Acura NSX GT3 car. Love the paint scheme here as well, with that sort of pinkish purple, very dark tone to it. It perfectly complements that the second half of the car being black there towards the rear end. That's a very interesting looking vehicle there. So soon enough we will be starting the qualifying session here for the Hypercars, which will make things very, very interesting here, and we'll see who will be on the pole position as this session is about to wrap up here for the GTs, as we cycle through some onboard cameras and angles here. Gives us great insight on how fast you can go through that first corner. That was mighty quick. It's all the way through there in 5th gear, as that was, I think this is Tom Lane that we're looking at here, because he's one of the drivers that switched over to the McLaren 720, isn't it? I know Stephen Miller usually runs with an orange livery on his McLaren, as the GT cars now start to make their way into the pit lane. I think that's done and dusted for the GT category. It looks like Ahmed Abdullah was the man to beat from pretty much the very get-go, and has maintained his speed on track and maintained the pole position in the GT category. So a great return there for Ahmed Abdullah, who will most likely sit on pole position. I do see that we still have some GT drivers still out there. Do we have any of the Hypercars working their way out? I think we do. Yes, we do. We have Hypercars already out there on track now to see to see who will be on pole position, to start their qualifying session, to see who will be on pole position here for the Hypercar category. But for GT, it will be Ahmed Abdullah and Timon Subic who will share the front row of the grid. Now we find out who will share the front row of the grid in the Hypercar, because of course both of them, both categories will start this race together. They will start both of them as a rolling start, and of course, well, we have to determine who will be on the front row for each of the category. categories, should we say, here. So actually in GT, the front row is a GT driver and a GTM driver, because of course Timon Subic is a GTM driver. So it's a great start for him as well, because championship leader Tom Lane will start behind him. And actually I just noticed that Jamie Zalewski, towards the end there, actually got the third fastest time. So him and Tom Lane will share that second row of the grid in GT, and for the two of them, it's going to be very interesting. Of course, those two drivers are in contention for a championship here around Road Atlanta. That could go all the way to Bahrain, but one could be heavily hampered if the race doesn't go their way at all here. And it's not going to be easy. It's not like a normal video game where we have the dynamic racing line on, we have all the assists, the wall avoidance systems and everything turned on. No, in rFactor 2 and in the Virtual World Sports Car Championship, we have a number of assists turned off to make it as real as possible. Of course, things like traction control will be turned on for our drivers here, but for Hypercar AM and Hypercar Pro, no assist will be available for in rFactor 2, and for the GT categories, for GT Pro and GT AM, there is onboard traction control and ABS, so that of course adds a little bit there to their cars, but gives them that little opportunity to think, okay, I'm not going to really lose the car, am I now? But, oh wait, maybe I might do here if I push it a little bit too far. So they still have to be constantly thinking of what they're doing on track here. Not going to be that easy. Come on. We want to make it as realistic as possible, don't we? That makes it fun and exciting. And as Ross Smith said before, this will no doubt be a race of attrition, because driver fatigue will certainly set in 100 minutes of racing. Well, it doesn't sound like a lot. That's just under 2 hours of racing. And yes, we might be in the comfort of our home with a fan blowing in our face and the opportunity to get up whenever we feel like it, but that's obviously not how it works here in a race car. We have to sit behind the wheel, and a lot of these drivers do have significant force feedback on their steering wheels, cranked up almost to 11, to ensure it is as real as possible. And when you sit behind these simulation rigs, of course, a lot of drivers have from, I don't want to say bare bones basic ones, because mine is bare bones and basic because it doesn't technically exist, all the way up to the semi and somewhat professional rigs that they have set up, and they simulate what it's really like to be behind the wheel of a car, a racing car that is, and it's incredibly immersive and it's incredibly tiring as well. Yes, you're in the comfort of your home, but at the same time you're behind the wheel of a simulator that's simulating what it's really like to race a car. So attrition is definitely going to be a thing here, as Eric Verde looks to be cresting the hill with two front wheels off the ground, essentially almost picking up some air. So that final corner there is going to be quite tough, because if they're getting air like that in qualifying, what are they going to be doing like, what are they going to be like through that final corner during the actual race? Now that could cause some issues, unless that was a graphical error there on my screen, which again is highly likely, but if air is travelling under the cars like that, that's going to really unsettle them, and that could chuck them up into the air, causing them to be out of the race. But here we are for the Hypercar qualifying here around Road Atlanta. Maximilian Tuzafaki is the man to beat at the moment in the Scuderia Glickenhaus. Great to see actually the Scuderia Glickenhaus here racing is one of the drivers. Oh, we speak about him, and he has an issue on track. Yes, he does. He's just gone off there. Now, I don't think that was through the S's. That looked to be in the later stages of the track. And my timing screen has decided it also wants to brake here. So I've unfortunately lost my timing screen. But he is the fastest man out there with a 108.602. And Dan Kirby has a 108.668. So he's only 6/100ths of a second from our current pole sitter in the Hypercar category. Now, has he gone fastest of all? Yes, he has, because Dan Kirby's just done a 108.099 here around Road Atlanta. My timing screen has decided that it wants to return here. So that's, I'm going to enjoy reading from this, so that's exactly what I need here. So Dan Kirby, purple through Sector 1 and Sector 2 on his previous lap in his Toyota GR010. Now, it seems to be the switch might be, oh, why would you want to switch from a Bugatti to a Toyota? Doesn't that seem like you're going the wrong direction? Well, no, the Toyota's quite good through the corners. And, of course, Dan Kirby wants to maximise his chances of winning a championship here as long as Johnny One does not finish second or higher here at Road Atlanta. Dan Kirby will be crowned victorious at the end of this race. However, at the moment, Johnny One is currently sitting in 6th position overall out on track, so he'll be starting on the 3rd row of the grid. And now what is he doing out on track? What was his fastest lap here so far? He did a 109.017 with Dan Kirby doing a 108.099. So it looks to be Dan Kirby is almost a full second faster around the track here during qualifying, not necessarily during the race, but of course during the race we will have GT cars mixed up with the Hypercars, which will add that extra degree of difficulty, especially for the Hypercars being the quicker of the two categories. So traffic is going to play a key factor, and that's exactly what Dan Kirby wants here. He wants traffic to be his biggest ally. He doesn't want to have to deal with having to fend off Johnny One for the lead or even second position. He'll be wanting the traffic to do his dirty work for him to keep Johnny One at bay and keep him in 3rd overall. Now, Johnny One, saying that, has just improved his time to bring it to 9/10 of a second behind Dan Kirby. He's done a 109.078, so he's brought it down ever so slightly, the deficit between himself and the current pole sitter. And of course, the two there both racing for CMS Pro, and both of them in the Toyota as well. So is that, yes, that would be a change for Johnny One. What was he in before? He must have been in the... Yes, he was in the Bugatti, of course, because we saw the graphic flash up on the screen before, so that was the vehicle he was using. So both of the CMS Pro Racing drivers there deciding to switch over to the Toyota GR010s. So 2 minutes left in the session here, and it looks to be now, where is the fastest GT car? Ahmed Abdullah did a 116.990, and the Toyota GR010 Dan Kirby has done a 108.099. So the Hypercars are around 8 seconds quicker in comparison to the GTs. So that's a lot of math to do. Obviously, they won't be catching them up on the very first lap, but however, they will be catching them quite rapidly. So traffic is going to play a key factor because the track is only 4.1 kilometers in length, and if we're lapping the whole track in about a minute or so, it's going to be quite early on when we start seeing traffic becoming an issue for the Hypercar drivers, because they're going to have to carve their way through the field. And here it's going to be quite difficult, especially through the S's, as we heard Ross Smith telling us before, that the S's are a permanent orange zone as well, and the penalties there are quite strict as well for anyone that is deemed to be pushing anybody wide or being a little bit cheeky there. They will be penalised for it, and that can be quite costly, because it may not be in this race, but it could carry over into the next race in Bahrain, the final round. And the last thing you'd want to do is, if you're in contention for the championship, is to have one of those penalties looming over your head, because one of them could be a DNQ, which means that the driver will not be eligible to qualify. They will be able to do the session, but they won't be able to qualify at all, which means they'll have to start from the back of the grid. And if they're in the hypercar category, that is going to be a lot of work to do on the opening lap, because they're going to have to carve their way through the field, which is not what they want to do, because it'll be, of course, using more of their car up, more of their tyres, and more fuel to maximise their chances of getting through as fast as possible. So they've got to be very careful through the S's here. And it looks like Jake Sanson will be joining us momentarily. I know he's had a very busy week here around the world. Yes, he has, because it's been quite busy, hasn't it? The season is in full swing in Europe. For me, the season doesn't start till the end of October, beginning of November, and I've got an incredibly short season here in the United Arab Emirates. But qualifying has officially concluded here. Well, the time has just concluded. The clock has struck 0, but the drivers have not all come across the line just yet. So let's see if there'll be a change for the lead. Dan Kirby, he's done his final lap. So we've got Ben Borman, who's looking to capitalise here, but he looks like he's going slower. Ross Smith is actually going faster at the moment. He's gone green through Sector 1. What can you do through Sector 3 again? He's green. He's got to find a way past Ben Borman, and there is Ross Smith on our screen. He's through the final corner. Does he improve? No. Or does he? It's still showing he's 10th on my screen. Surely he must have improved, because that was a quicker lap. It's still showing him 10th for some reason. Maybe it was only good enough for 10th position. Let's wait and see, because of course we have 15 minutes of warm-up. And of course, we have the driver's briefing as well. That will take place, so we won't really see any on-track action. We'll just see some shots of the garage here and there, along with maybe a car or two that is in the garage. So qualifying is done and dusted. Dan Kirby will share the front row of the grid with Jerry Chen, the CMS Pro driver, alongside Flying Kiwi Racing with Maximilian Potavki. Behind him on row number 2 with Ben Borman. Now in GT, they will start all the way down in 13th position. So it will be a GT and a hypercar. Wayne Hutchinson and Ahmed Abdullah will be sharing. No, they won't be sharing. There will be. Ahmed Abdullah will be on the 7th row of the grid with Timon Sovic alongside for company here at Road Atlanta. So we have a GT driver with a GT AM driver alongside for company. In the GT AM category, the Hypercar AM category, is it Ross Smith who will be on the front row of the grid? No, it's Jerry Chen who will be the highest placed GT AM driver during qualifying. And here is the official starting grid here. Dan Kirby will share the front row of the grid with Jerry Chen, the number 008, with the 66 along 5 company. Then the 093 didn't quite catch who was alongside him, but Brian Hall and John Owan will share row number 3, and that's exactly where Dan Kirby would like John Owan to stay. But of course, 100 minutes of racing could change where John Owan will be. Walter De Bruyn will share row number 5 with Ross Smith, and then we have Eric Mornay with Wayne Hutchinson sharing the 6th row of the grid in the Lamborghini and the Mercedes AMG 1. Ahmed Abdullah, the first of GT drivers, shares the 7th row of the grid with Timon Suvic, the GT driver with the GT AM driver, with Jamie Zaleczki and Tom Lane, 2 of the championship protagonists here in GT AM, will share the 8th row of the grid. On row number 9, Brandon Gant, who finished 7th overall in GT to secure the championship, will line up alongside George Angelidis, with Lisso Neto in the Bentley Continental just behind him. Craig Dans in the second of the Bentley Continentals here, with Ronald Hagenas alongside for company in the C8 with Yeri Harien, and Stephen Miller in his McLaren 720S behind them. Eugene Mazur and Mike Boyce will share row number in 25th and 26th position, with Peter Meyer and James Bowders sharing row number 16 behind them. On row number 15, will be Adam Gray with Stephen Boyce, and rounding out the field will be Maciek Kazpiziak on the final slot of the grid in 31st position in his Audi R8 LMS GT3. So a lot of catching up will Maciek need to do here during the races. So drivers briefing is currently underway. Then we'll have 15 minutes of warm-up, and then we'll go into the penultimate race here around Road Atlanta. And as we said before earlier in the broadcast, things are getting quite interesting already. Yes, we have some titles already wrapped up. We have... Let's just go through exactly what is already wrapped up. It is, of course, the Hypercar team. CMS Pro have locked that up in the bag for the 2 drivers that have locked out the front go, Jerry Chen and Daniel Kirby. They've done enough before this race has even begun to be crowned champion in the teams category. In the GT teams, it is 1 point to be scored to be champion, so they need to finish 10th. They need to finish anywhere on track, because of course they will score at least 1 point if they're scored 10th or lower during the session at the end of the 100 minutes, as long as they complete a certain amount of time on racing. If they don't, they will not score that all-important point, and will have to go all the way down to the last round of the season to be crowned champion. The GT AM teams, though, has been concluded. Trash Panda Racing are the champions officially here before this round has begun. In the Hypercar, though, the drivers, Dan Kirby can clinch the Drivers' Championship, as we said before, with John Owan if he fails to come second or better. So for John Owan, the pressure is on if he wants to take this all the way down to Bahrain in a couple of weeks' time. Both the drivers there have swapped cars from the Bugatti into the Toyota for the final 2 races here. And a reason to why they've swapped over is because they believe that the bumpiness of Road Atlanta and the hairpin corners at Bahrain really make the Bugatti suffer. So they decided to go for the Toyota, which is a little bit faster through the corners. Actually, it's the fastest car through the corners here as well. In the Hypercar AM category for the drivers, 3 points separate 3 drivers here. So that will be a fantastic battle all the way throughout this race and Bahrain as well, because if all goes wrong for those 3 drivers, it's going to be an incredible last race of the season now, isn't it? Separating for those 3. And here is the standings. So there you can see Jerry Chen in the Hypercar AM category. category is just 3 points ahead of Eric Moyne. But Ross Smith is also in contention for that as well, who we spoke to earlier today. And as we said, 3 points just separate those three. Three very rapid drivers indeed, and all three of them are actually starting quite far up the order. Actually, Ross Smith's actually starting a lot further back than Jerry Chen, because Jerry Chen, of course, is way up, isn't he? And Eric Moyne slotted in somewhere between the two of them. So it's going to be quite interesting to see what those three can do before the end of the race here. Can they be all in the same area? Because can we have like a three-wide flying formation with all three coming across the line together, scoring different points? One can dream here towards the end of the race, or will it go that way? Possibly not. And of course, the Hypercar Am teams, Flying Kiwi needs to outscore Storm Rider Noon by just 17 points to be crowned champion. In Hypercar, as we said, Dan Kirby needs John Owan to finish third or worse to ensure that he is crowned champion. So he's going to need his teammate to have an issue here. You don't necessarily want your teammate to have an issue because, of course, he is your backup. He's the one that will be defending for you if you are in contention for a victory. However, when you have two drivers in the same team that are going for a championship, it makes things that much more difficult for the two drivers who are challenging here for the title. And the Hypercar teams, as we said before, has already been wrapped up for CMS Pro, who are officially the champions with 314 points. So they're happy already that you already locked in the team title. Now in GT, Brandon Gant needs he needs to come 7th or better to be a champion. So if we put that into perspective into how many points you score, is 8 points. So there are 7 points separating himself and his closest rival. So he needs to score just 7 points to ensure he goes into the final round with more points than required to be classified as champion, where George Angelidis will be vice champion going into that final race if he doesn't score, if Brandon Gant doesn't finish 7th or higher. George Angelidis could take this all the way down to the wire. Now, in the GT teams, HPD, which George Angelidis is racing for, as is John Mayer and the Acura NSX, they need just 1 point to secure their championship title here for 2022. In GT AM, Matt Boyce, who is not here for the last two races, Jamie Zaleczki and Tom Lane can clinch the championship here. Sorry, they can't. No, it's not here. Sorry. They can clinch it in the next round in Bahrain. But the 5 points that separate them, at the moment, with 174 points to 169, will make things very, very interesting. Of course, as we said, Matt Boyce, who does have the advantage going into this race, for him, what he'd actually like to see is these two probably take each other out, with him unfortunately having work commitments, not being able to race, and somehow netting himself a championship while at work will be probably the most exciting thing that will happen to him this season. Because what are the chances that you don't participate in two races yet still walk away as a champion because you have work commitments? So let's see what happens here for Jamie Zaleczki and Tom Lane. But Tom Lane, of course, has swapped cars from his Mustang to the McLaren 730S for his one free car switch throughout the season. As he says that unfortunately the Mustang might be a bit too volatile when it comes to the curbs here at Road Atlanta and of course in Bahrain, so he's trying to capitalise on the free switch here to ensure he can be victorious here in Road Atlanta and take it all the way down to the wire in Bahrain. In the AM category for the teams, that's already been wrapped up. Trash Panda Racing have their 308 points. No one is getting anywhere close to them. They don't even need to take part in this race to be crowned champion, but of course they are still doing so here today. And that, of course, is the championship standings for all of the teams. So the driver briefing is done and dusted. They have now 15 minutes of warm-up here just to get to grips with the racetrack and just to get more time in behind the wheel, just to sort of set up their rhythm, get in the zone, get ready for this 100 minutes of racing, because of course it doesn't sound like a lot, but it most certainly is. It's going to be quite a long one here around Road Atlanta, and pit lane is going to be quite busy because, of course, now the drivers will be taking time to figure out where they're stopping, how fast they can, how late they can brake, how early they can put their foot on the gas, etc., etc. Because, of course, that's what a warm-up is. And I've just seen Jake Sanson's had a warm-up on the way here. I've warmed up the start here of the commentary, and Jake Sanson now will join me here to make it slightly easier. Jake, it's been a while, and I'm glad that you're here with us today for the penultimate round of the 2022 Virtual World Sports Car Championship. I think he may be just joining us, so we'll come back to him in a bit. We have just over 11 minutes remaining in the session. As we said here, this is the sort of the teething period before the start of the race. Here's where things will be starting to be figured out. As you can see, pit lane is very, very busy, and of course throughout the race it will be very busy as well, because over the course of 100 minutes we're expecting to see at least one pit stop per team. Minimum will be one. Maximum, I think, will be 3 over 100 minutes. As long as they don't have any issues on track or issues with their car or external issues as well, whether it be connection or technical difficulties. We may see some drivers come in more frequently compared to others, but I do believe 1 pit stop will be the minimum here around Road Atlanta, with 2 and 3 being probably the most common amount of pit stops being used here for this race of the 30 plus drivers, because we said we've got quite a massive field here today of drivers. We actually have 31 drivers here participating in the GT race. Here, not GT race, in the Hypercar. GT has the most amount of drivers participating, with close to 20 GT cars here separated to GT and GTM. So winning that category is going to be no easy feat, but also working your way through that category for the Hypercars is going to be difficult as well. Those drivers are going to really struggle here through this field, because again, Road Atlanta is, let's say, it is not a track that you want to try and go 2 and 3 wide through some of these areas, especially the S's, because if you get things wrong there, that's it, out, gone. You're going to have a lot of catching up to do, and you may have thrown away the race completely. There we have all the corners, so I think we have 14 in total. We've got 10A and 10B. Sorry, we've got 13 then in total, haven't we? So turn 1, 5th gear all the way through there, especially in the Hypercar, so you can go through there if you're brave enough in 6th gear in one of the Hypercars, but I presume it won't be that fast through there. Then you've got the S's there, quick left, right, left, right, left, right, all the way through there. And as we heard Ross Smith say earlier in the broadcast, that is going to be a permanent orange zone. So the stewards there are going to be keeping a very close eye on that entire sector there to ensure that no one is being cheeky and no one is pushing other people off track. Because as we said before, the penalties are going to be quite strict here as well, because they will range from anywhere from time penalties all the way up to stop and go penalties and more, including did not qualify, which is the last thing you need in the final race of the championship. Now, turn 6 and 7 is kind of the end of the orange zone, and then it's all the way through that long straightaway with that short king through turn 8 and short right-hander through turn 9. Heavy braking down towards the quick turn 10 and turn A and 10B section there. So that's going to be a corner that we're going to have to keep a close eye on as well, because we're going to see plenty of action into that braking zone, because it's very, very heavy. Behold some wait for some heavy late braking maneuvers through those corners, especially throwing it deep down in there and trying to turn left as soon as possible without locking up the front. And then we've got the last 2 corners, turn 11 and 12, slightly easier in angle. And of course you can get a good run of speed through there, especially in the GTs. The Hypercars have to be a little bit more careful with their top end speed going through there, but of course with the likes of the Toyota, a lot more mechanical grip, so make it slightly easier to go through there. So we only have 8 minutes left to go. 4 minutes to go actually in the session before we start the race. So the race will start momentarily, which of course we are very excited about here, because we could be crowning champions, or we could be taking it all the way down to the final here of the VWSC, the Virtual World Sports Car Championship for 2022, in both categories as well, which is always exciting. We don't want to see them wrapped up ages before the last race. We want to see it go all the way down to the wire. We want action. We want to see who will be throwing it all except the kitchen sink in the very last race in Bahrain here in the VWSC. So 4 minutes to go, or just under 4 minutes to go, as per one of the drivers in the Hypercar category, is Ross Smith. He is going to struggle at the early stages here, because he's starting quite a ways down the order. Of course, he is one of 3 drivers that's in contention for a championship in the GTM category, in the Hypercar AM category, sorry. In his wonderful liveried IKEA Koenigsegg Jesko. Very, very Swedish of him. The only thing that, that would make it even more Swedish if it was a Volvo, but then it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't be in the Hypercar, it would be in GT. Well, Volvo don't have any GT cars, do they? Need to work on that. Need to get some S90s or S60s in the GT categories. I've got a little bit of slow-mo here, and and that, I think, is my connection. That's why. There was some cool footage there, nonetheless, of the slowdown. They crested over the hill and down they went. It's super slow motion. As you said, we're winding now down through the session, edging closer to the start of the race here at Road Atlanta. 100 minutes of racing, 100 minutes of exciting racing as well, and it's going to be rather intense for a handful of drivers. And of course there's the others that are not in contention. However, they're going to want to be here to upset the party, because they're going to be right, I don't really care, I'm not in the race, I'm going to be going for the win. I'm not really, you know, in a zone to say, oh, I'm going to let you through and win this race. No, if I've got the quicker car, I'm going to win this race, and you're going to have to suffer. You're going to have to take it all the way down to the very last race of the championship, as Jake Sanson appears to be having some technical issues. Now he knows what I feel like every day of the week. As not too long to go now before the end of this session, and then as we said before, we're going into the 100 minutes of racing around Road Atlanta, offering plenty of challenges. Will this track, of course, I have a feeling we'll have this short day to night cycle, which will add that extra degree of difficulty here, as things already getting exciting through the second half of the track here. And that's actually the exit of the S's there, where things are getting a little bit spicy between some of the hypercars. You don't want to be doing that through the race, through the free practice session here. Not too much to worry about here, or the warm-up session even. Then push each other wide. But if you start doing that through the race, you're going to have the ever so watchful eye of the stewards looking right at you. And then, unfortunately, you will be penalised at the end of this race and have to go into the next race with a massive penalty looming over your head, as we said before. Not something that you would like at all. Not long to go, as I said, as we patiently wait here for the start. As he said, championships galore all the way through here today. Now, some of them are a lot tighter than, say, others are. Some have already been locked up already. And it looks like we may be getting started soon, actually. As a lot of the drivers are now working their way into the garage here. But we still have a few drivers circulating, so I think we still have more than 4 minutes left on the clock here at Road Atlanta. So still plenty of time left for the drivers to get to grips here around Road Atlanta, getting as much time as they can in the bag before they start. There are a few more drivers who are entering the pit lane. As the clock ticks down to 3 minutes remaining in the session. Yellow flags briefly waving there in Sector 2. Actually, haven't seen many yellow flags here. We've seen them briefly pop up in Sector 1 and Sector 3, but Sector 1 no doubt will be a hotspot, especially through the S's. And we're just waiting for one driver who's having technical difficulties to join the session. So that might be why we have a slight delay, although we still do have some slight issues all around here. I too had a lot of technical difficulties last time out here. I had to run everything off the timing screen, but I can relate to everybody that have these difficulties. It's heartbreaking. This is the only issue when we race online, isn't it? With technical issues. Of course, we are broadcasting around the world, and a lot of us are situated in various countries around the world as well, where connectivity can be a real issue, whether it be within the city limits or just outside of the countryside. It can be quite difficult here. So we're just waiting, as you said, for one of the drivers to connect back into the session, and then we'll get going with 100 minutes of Road Atlanta. As we're looking at yellow engine in the Corvette C8 GT3R. Here's Ben Borman. Fantastic qualifying effort actually from Ben Borman as well. Way up towards the sharp end of the field. Now he's had some technical issues in the past glad to see that he's got them all sorted out as well, so that he can continue racing here this weekend. Unfortunately not within title of contention, but certainly with the speed that he's shown throughout the sessions, he is in contention for a win here at Road Atlanta in the Condensed-format. And Kirby goes quickest now in this session. So it should be getting underway shortly here. Look at Peter Mile, they were looking at what appears to be a C6 Corvette that will be serving as the pace car here, if required. Of course, the C6 Corvette was not the last generation to have the engine mounted in the front of the car. It was actually the C7, and then the C8, which we have racing here today in the GT category, has the engine mounted in the rear. So we're about to get underway here for the formation lap around Road Atlanta, with the field being dropped in position. Can you imagine how, if we could do this in real life, and how easy it would be to set up a field if you just drop the cars into position. But here they are. Here is the starting order. Dan Kirby and Jerry Chen will share the front row of the grid with the 093 with Ben Borman alongside for company in his Koenigsegg. You just see on the front left there. Brian Hall will share the third row of the grid, with John Uwan, who's looking for to keep his championship fight alive here before the final race, straight and whited, and she was alongside for company. Walter De Bruyn and Ross Smith will round out the fifth row of the grid. Ross Smith got a lot of work to cut out for him here. But Eric Monet does start behind him, so he doesn't have too much to worry about. He can outscore at least one of his championship rivals. And then we have the first of the GT drivers, Ahmed Abdullah with Tumil Subic alongside for company on the seventh row of the grid. Jamie Zalewski and Tom Lane will share row number 8 in the Aston Martin and the McLaren, respectively. Brendan Gant, who just finished 7th or better in GT, could be crowned champion after 100 minutes here of racing, with George Angelidis, Alessio Neto and John Mayer there in that 4-car quartet. On row number 11, Craig Downs with Hagenas with Yule Hyen and Stephen Miller sharing row number 12. On row number 13, Eugene Mazur with Mike Boyce, with Peter Meyer and James Bowders sharing row number 14. There in the Mercedes-AMG and the Porsche. And then row number 15, Adam Gray with Stephen Boyce. And rounding out the field is Maciej Kaspisiak in his Audi R8 LMS GT3. Now, I do know that one driver did have an issue, and I did see some spots on the grid where we should have some cars in Hypercar and GT. So we do have, I do think we might have some empty slots in there. Hopefully we do get to see all the drivers make their way across, because 31 cars here around Road Atlanta in the Virtual World Sports Car Championship is going to be an exciting 100 minutes of racing here, and we're about to get underway. We're working our way now through Sector 2, around that tiny back straight here to enter the second part of the track here. We're moments away from starting. The excitement is starting to flow. The adrenaline is starting to pump through the drivers and myself as well, because Road Atlanta always provides some excellent racing, as does the Virtual World Sports Car Championship here for 2022. And things are about to get underway. Now on to the long back straight here, leading down towards turn 10A and 10B. But before they do that, they have to crest over the hill where turn 8 is, through a short kink to the right, and then they go heavy into the braking zone down towards turn 10A, that left-hander. As you said before, that's where we're going to see a lot of action. There it is, just after the brow there. They go downhill. They have to be very careful when it comes to braking, because of course you're going to pick up speed going downhill, and you don't want to slam your foot on the brake when you're going downhill, because if you spin out and take it out, you can not only cause yourself a race loss, you can also take out a championship contender, which is the last thing you want to do. So working their way through turn 11, they start accelerating through this corner now. It's nice and smooth at the moment as Shields Orlando lines up on the 4th row of the grid in 8th position. There's Walter De Bruyn. Watch out for him, because he'll be mighty quick. So through the final corner, Dan Kirby leads the field through here. He leads the Hypercars, and across the line, the green flag wave. Yes, he does a great jump as well for Dan Kirby, as he escapes immediately from the clutches of Jerry Chen. It also Jerry Chen was caught napping, because on the inside, here comes Maximilian in the 093 in the Lignau Scuderia. Great opening lap, a great opening stint there already with the green flag waves, as the Scuderia has gone through. Jerry Chen got caught napping down to 3rd position. Now, for Johnny One. Where is he at the moment? He's up in the 5th position, so he's gained at least 1 place already past Brian Hall, but he's tucked up now behind Ben Borman. Ben Borman's been very quick here this weekend, and Jerry Chen looking each and every way to find a way through. Can he do it? Not quite yet. He's going to have to settle into the groove here before he finds a way through. Brian Hall with his Starry Night paint scheme. Absolutely love it that he's continued on with that Vincent Van Gogh inspired paint job here throughout the season. First one hit in Le Mans during the night time. Quite hard to spot, but Starry Night there split perfectly during the night time there. Jason White is sitting in 7th position. He's lost out by the looks of it, actually. Here trying to make a move. Or no, he's not. That's Brian Hall on the inside, isn't it? Of, was that Jerry Chen? No, it's not. Who is he trying to make a move on the inside of? There was Brian Hall. Was it Jerry Chen? No, it's Johnny Wan that he's made a move past. So that's great news for Dan Kirby, isn't it? Because that's another position lost and a position gained for Dan Kirby in his championship hunt. So he's going to love that here. But Jerry Chen Johnny Wan, excuse me, is going to keep it. You can see how much grip that Toyota has through that first corner compared to that Lamborghini. That is where the Toyotas are so strong through the corners. That's where they're going to gain maximum time, and that's what Jerry Chen needs, especially through the S's. Here we go down to the battle in at GT. Now we see Tom Lane in his McLaren 720. This is going to be very weird not to call it a Mustang. At least he's kept it with an M at the beginning. But the McLaren 720 GT3 car, which is going to bring here much better through the corners compared to the Mustang GT3 car. And Jamie Zalewski, his championship rival, is just ahead. A yellow in sector 1. Who's had an issue going through there? Who's dropping back? Can't quite catch who is dropping back there at the moment, but somebody has. Dan Kirby goes quickest through sector 1. He goes purple through that sector. Peter Meyer, unfortunately, struggling here, tumbling down, using as much of the curves as he can in his AMG. He's actually lost significant ground from the start of the race there, dropping down into 29th position. Behind him is one of the Bentleys, so we've only got 30 drivers, so indeed we are missing. Oh, Adam Gray's had an issue. Adam Gray's tumbled all the way down the order, hasn't he? And he's gone, well, he's 31st. He's just gone through sector 2, and he'll be the first driver to be lapped. Now, we're going for a replay here. This is going to be the reason as to what happened to Adam Gray. There he is. Now, he's working his way what looks to be through the S's. That car does not look up to speed at all. So that was the exit of the back straight. That's turn 8 that's just behind him. Coming up to turn 9, it just doesn't look like he's up to speed compared to the rest of the field. So he may just be plodding along here. But he's going to become soon enough a moving roadblock because the championship leader and the race leader is coming up behind him. So he's going to have to move out of the way as soon as possible. And of course the blue flags will be waving here at Road Atlanta, as that was a battle between Peter Meyer and that's one of the Bentleys that's run wide. Is that John Mayer who's had an issue? No, it's not. John Mayer is further up the order. Who's that battling with? Oh, it's Alessio Neto. He's also struggled at the beginning as well because he had quite a good qualifying position and all the way now down towards the tail end of the GT field here. Good thing that he is not in a championship fight. Here is Dan Kirby already now up to the back marker. The first car is already going to lap down. It's not predicted to be on the 3rd lap of the race here around Road Atlanta. Dan Kirby makes his way easily through Adam Gray's Audi R8, as does the 093 Maximilian Kudravsky. Very quick to work their way past the back marker there. Much easier said. No, sorry, much easier done than said actually, because usually back markers do create quite a bit of inconvenience depending on where you catch them out on track, but luckily for Dan Kirby, he caught him in the right place, managed to get through and past him as quick as possible. Dan Kirby there, green through sector 1 and sector 2 on that lap. A 109.243, the fast lap of the race so far. And it wasn't on that lap. It doesn't say what his last lap time is for some reason, but he is 3.2 seconds up the road from his closest rival. As John Nguyen now works his way up the order, now up in the 7th position, trying to find a way past Jules Hollande, which he's not had the best opening lap either. Walter De Bruyn as well. He started in 4th position, all the way down now to 9th, so he's not had a great opening couple of laps here behind the wheel of his Pagani Imola. Ross Smith not making any moves at the moment either. Now, Eric Monet is behind him, but of course he is in that championship here in the Hypercar. Now, something isn't right here. He's saying he's clinched the championship, but he can't have clinched the championship yet. He's locked in battle at the moment. It is an interesting sheet that I have there. Doesn't look to be, as in the points are making much sense there, because there's a three-way battle. Here we are looking at another replay here. Now, what has happened on track? This is when the Koenigsegg Yes goes. This is the, I have a feeling this is Jason Whitehead's Koenigsegg, because he is the highest place Koenigsegg as well. Well, we ticked over to another replay here of some of the GT cars, mixing it up with one of the Hypercars. With one of the Hypercars now trying to work its way through the tail end of the GTs. Now, one of the Bentleys is off. That's Alessio Neto, who's struggled so far in this race. As through on the inside goes one of the Hypercars, carving their way through the GT field. And you can see just how tight it is as well, and how early you come across the next corner as well. Especially on that very short back straight. You haven't got a lot of time there, and it's very easy to make mistakes, very easy to run wide or run too close to the corner and take yourself out of contention or of the running. Now, there's Maximilian Kravke, who is working his way through the back markers. Things getting a little bit spicy there for him. Crest over the hill. Quite rapid are the Hypercars through that turn 11 complex. Very exciting corner as well. It's a blind crest, and it's downhill as we've got Hypercars and GT cars here in the thick of things with Johnny Wan, one of our championship protagonists here in the CMS Pro Racing. They've already wrapped up the championship, however, for the team, but for the drivers overall, they have not secured the championship, as one of it is the Corvette C8 has gone off, the Sol Corvette C8 as well in Sector 1. Now, that's Roland Hagenas for GR Racing, and I think we're going to get a replay of exactly what happened. Actually, we've got two Corvettes here. Now, this looks to be Johnny Wan chasing down the Koenigsegg Jesker that's just in front of him, and that would be Jason Whitehead. So the other Koenigsegg was not Ross Smith, that was Ben Borman, sorry, in the Koenigsegg we saw earlier in the shots, because this is the battle here for 6th position, the Storm Rider Racing Koenigsegg and the CMS Pro Tour GR010 here of Johnny Wan. It was one of the JR Motors racing cars, the Corvettes that went round. I have a feeling it wasn't Ron Hagenas, sorry, it was his teammate, Jelle Hedgenin, who had an issue. We're looking at Adam Gray here, the sole, we've got two Audi R8s, which is saying that Mieka Spizak has actually done a fantastic opening set of laps here, because he's up into 21st. He started 31st, he started dead last here, and in 4 laps or so, he's already gained position. So that my microphone has decided that it would also like to complete its laps faster than I would. So get that back in position. Yes, it was Jelle Hedgenin who went off. Oh, more issues for Alessio Neto as well, and the Bentley Continental doesn't seem to be getting that first sector right here at all on this lap, as Jelle Hedgenin 1 lap behind the overall race leader. That was a given though, because of course Hypercars 8 seconds faster, if not 9 seconds faster actually, than the rest of the field. Now the 30th place car overall is that Alessio Neto, having another issue towards the tail end of Sector 2. We've got a car stopped out on track. Adam Gray seems to have an issue through the S's, but has quickly managed to get back up to speed again as he works his way through. Hour and 30 minutes on the clock in this 100 minutes of racing. An hour and 40 to go at the very start of the race. So that means we've elapsed successfully the first 10 minutes of racing. I'd like to say it's been incident free, but Alessio Neto has come into the pit lane already. Now this will be an unscheduled pit stop here. Not sure why he's come in either, because that was too quick for tyre change or refueling, unless he's topped it up ever so slightly, or if he has a technical issue. And even if you have a technical issue, you spend a little bit more time in the pit lane than that, as Peter Meyer does a little bit of lawn mowing there. And do we have another car that's coming to pit lane? Yes, we do. Who's that that's coming? Not. Is that Peter Meyer that's coming? Oh, we have Adam Gray who's pointing in the wrong direction. I have a feeling that might have been earlier. Adam Gray is shown as, and where is he on the track? Because according to the track map, he's still going. So Alessio Neto is in the pit lane at the moment. There is Adam Gray. He's lost his spoiler from that contact, so that's going to really affect his downforce here. Because, of course, the air will rush over the back of the car, and it can't really push the back end of the car down. So he's going to really struggle here. Now, where is Adam Gray on track? He's working around the final corner here, but he's going to have to come in and get that changed or fixed, better yet, because that's going to be a real issue here towards the end of the race. As we said, that's going to affect his downforce, and he's actually come into pit lane now. I do wonder if we get a replay of exactly how that rear wing fell off. Is there any contact, or he's just done it all by his lonesome? Because when we saw it, it was the tail end of the incident, wasn't it? It was just there with his nose facing the wrong direction into the wall. So unfortunately for Alessio Neto, it's not gone the way he'd like it to, and neither has it gone the way Adam Gray would like to either. Now we're going to get a replay here. It is not of Adam Gray's incident, it's just of Adam Gray chilling in the pit lane, essentially waiting for that rear wing to be fixed. Again, this is an unscheduled pit stop, so he could choose to switch up his strategy here, maybe put a little fuel in here, save the tyres for a later pit stop, come in a little bit later compared to the rest of the field, and see if he can capitalise and gain some ground on the rest of the field. However, with his current pace, I think that's going to be quite a stretch to ask for, but we've seen things happen in the past, and he may be eligible still for a victory. We can't count him out just yet. We've only elapsed 10 minutes of racing as the yellow flag waves again in Sector 1. Now, exiting the pit lane, just there in the back of the screen was Alessio Neto in his Bentley. Now, was that Eric Moyne off in the runoff area? No. That was him working his way through the S's. I thought he had an issue there, and was working his way through the runoff area, the additional track there, but the emergency lane. And you can see how tight it's getting out there in both Hypercar and GT. Not a lot of wiggle room there at all, only slight overcorrection, and there's going to be an issue for one of the drivers and then all the other drivers that are around him. So we could see one small mistake turn into a massive, colossal incident going through any part of the track here. It's very tight around Road Atlanta here, and well, that's the adrenaline that will get you through there, and the excitement is that what happens if you do overcorrect and you slightly turn a little bit left when you shouldn't do that, or slightly right and there's someone there. What exactly happens is John Owan desperately trying to find a way past Ben Borman. Now, has Ben Borman gone down? Has he fallen back? No, he hasn't. He somehow got through, because Ben Borman was behind John Owan, Walter De Bruyn and Ross Smith, and he somehow managed to make his way up into the... well, he was in 6th position, not anymore. Ben Borman has gone down into 8th position, down with Ross Smith. However, that's not what it's showing on our screen. It shows that he's in 7th, and it looks like John Owan, Walter De Bruyn and Ben Borman all battling there for 6th position, because Walter De Bruyn in his Pagani has now gone into the lead of this trio battle here. Now, where is Ross Smith in all of this? He is 4.8 seconds adrift, so he's really struggling here at the moment in this first opening stint. There he is, quite a ways back, and he's fending off Wayne Hutchinson at the moment in his Mercedes Project 1 at the moment. The back bumper there of one of the Acuras is the IKEA liveried Koenigsegg. Would like to be in the thick of things there with those 3 cars that are battling up the road. So Ben Borman, Walter De Bruyn and Johnny Wan all switching positions, and it seems to be it's not for 6th and 7th. Is that 8th going to 6th, 6th going to 7th, and 8th, 7th place driver going down to 8th position. So a good battle here of these 3 drivers. Ben Borman's got the jump again as he's moved into 6th sixth position overall, 6th of a second up the road. But you can see just how close this battle is here between these three. And of course, for John Uwan, this is not what he needs. John Uwan does not need to be locked in this battle. He needs to get past these two and escape up the road and go and try and catch Dan Kirby. Just in front of him is Brandon Gant. Now he just needs to finish 7th overall in class, and he is currently running in, where is Brandon Gant in the GT category? He is tucked up behind Ahmed Abdullah, so he's in the position that he needs to be in. He is in 2nd overall. So this is good news for Brandon Gant because he's in the point scoring position that he needs. John Uwan has lost out the ball to Brew now and gone into 8th position, with Ross Smith still struggling to catch this pack here. He's definitely kind of run away through. As John Uwan comes on one of the back marker Lamborghinis. Now that's not one of the SCVs in the Hypercar category. That's the Huracan Evo 2. That's in the GT field. John Uwan, as I said, struggling here ever so slightly, but of course, let's see what he can do in the pit stops. Can he capitalise through the during the pit stop cycles to try and catch his teammate Dan Kirby, because that's what he needs to do here today to ensure that he can stay in contention here for a title in the 2022 Virtual World Sports Car Championship. Yeli headed in, getting it all wrong and going off track through the tail end of the S's. Tom Lane, a very strong race from him as well. Remember, he's one of our championship contenders in GT Am with Jamie Zaleczki, and he's actually just ahead of Jamie Zaleczki at the moment as well. These two separated by just 5 points in the championship, and currently it will be going the way. Now, if we do some quick maths, because they're currently in 2nd and 3rd in the championship. Now, the point gap between the two of them there will be 4 points. So, importantly for Tom Lane, he's brought the gap down to just a single point between himself and Jamie Zaleczki for the championship title in GT Am. We have a yellow flag waving in Sector 1. We also have the 27th place car overall currently in the pit lane. We've got a car stopped at the exit of pit lane by the looks of it, just at the entrance of turn 1. And that is Yellow Hengenin, again, who's having issues here today. Now, he's not got the car going, according to the timing screen at least. Now, the yellow flag has been withdrawn. Does that mean he's far enough off track as the two R8s doing battle? He's got the car going again, so that's good news. Mike Boyce has come into the pit lane for the first time in the Trash Panda Racing Lamborghini. There he is. I would assume this is not a scheduled pit stop either, because it is too early. We already raced for 20 minutes. It's far too early for a pit stop, for the pit stop cycle to start. Ronald Hagenas is out by the looks of it. As it's just his timing screen on my timing screen has just turned grey, which usually means that car is out. Actually, no, not yet. He's just gone into the garage, so he may be having a technical issue that he's trying to sort out here. Hopefully it's not a connection issue, because if it is a connection issue, that would be torrid for him. Here, Sector 2, yellow flag briefly waving, also in Sector 1 as well. So 2 cars currently in the pit lane. We've got Peter Meyer facing the wrong way. Trying to get the car pointing in the right direction. Got to be careful of the traffic though. It's taking him some time. Puts his foot down. Oh, Stephen Boyce has had a problem as well in one of the Trash Panda Racing Lamborghinis. That is not the same Boyce that was in the pit lane. No, it wasn't. That was the other Boyce. That was Mike Boyce that was in that pit. He was in the pit lane before, so they've got an error of cold tyres for one of the Boyces. Yellow in Sector 2. Oh, we have Wade Hutchison pointing in the right direction. How on earth did that happen, and how on earth has he got behind the wall? Now, that is the exit of turn 9, turn 7, probably, because he's now working his way through turn 8, so he must have overlooked it through turn 7, was too early on the accelerator, and kind of just spun the entire car around and got back behind the wall. Now, I wonder if there's any damage to that car, and if there is, he's going to have to come in and fix that immediately. Now, He was battling with Ross Smith. He was a little bit further up the road than Eric Moynay was in comparison to Ross Smith, but he was in battle, so I wonder if he just missed the point that he needed. And another car off, that's Craig Dans. That is at the end of the S's by the looks of it. No, yes it is. That is because that was turn 6, and he's now gone through turn 7, working his way through turn 8 now. So the first 20 minutes providing a lot of action on track. A lot of drivers not able to keep it on all the way, and that's what Road America, we did that a couple of weeks ago. This is Road Atlanta, baby, in the heart of Georgia. A lot of drivers being caught out here by how treacherous this track really can be. Very tight in most parts. You can just about fit 3.5 cars on the straightaways as Brendan Gant moves out of the way of championship leader Dan Kirby. Of course, Brendan moves across pretty much immediately. He knows, hey look, I'm also in my own championship battle. I don't want to ruin yours, you don't ruin mine. So he allows him through, pretty nice and easy. Doesn't want to impede him. As another car is into the pit lane. Now this might be a strategy here because this car is positioned slightly higher up the road than anyone else. That's Maciej Kazbiziak, who started at the tail end of the field and worked his way up the order all the way up to 21st, as Walter de Bruin now has an issue. And of course, Ben Borman and John Owan and Walter de Bruin all in close proximity not too long ago. Now as that close proximity turned into contact, and there is Maciej Kazbiziak. He's currently in the garage along with Ronan Hagenas, so hopefully not a DNF for him. Hopefully it's just a technical issue that he's trying to sort out. Now, of course, it does put him in a deficit, and if we had the man of the first 20 laps, it would certainly be Maciej, because, of course, he did a great job starting 31st, coming his way up through the field into 21st in just, I think it was 3 laps as well. So, brilliant drive right from the get-go from Maciej, but unfortunately now in the garage. Here is Ben Borman, currently circulating in 6th position overall in his Koenigsegg Jesko. Tucked up behind one of the Aston Martins by the looks of it. And here's Johnny One. Not where he needs to be, but still plenty of time left on the clock. Over an hour and 15 minutes to go in this session. For Johnny One to try and capitalise here and get the jump on and during the pit stop cycle. Of course, what he needs to do is he needs to either win in the hypercar category or finish second behind either his teammate or anybody else in order to keep this championship hunt alive. Now, if he finishes the race where he is right now, that means the championship goes the way of Dan Kirby. So that means we won't have a fight in the final race in Bahrain for the hypercar. It'll be already done and dusted. We'll have to wait for the hypercar AM to be sorted out, because of course in that category you have 3 drivers contesting for the championship title. In GT, it's more or less the same thing GT AM is more or less the same thing as we do have in Hypercar AM, where we have a number of drivers that are in contention for the victory, with unfortunately one not being able to make the last 2 races, and they'll have to they won't be seen in the rest of the championship, so it's just down to Tom Lane and Jamie Zaleczki to battle it out for the championship title in the hypercar category. Here's Ahmed Abdullah. An incident-free race here for Ahmed Abdullah. He's had nothing too much to worry about. He hasn't got any cars around him. He's got a hypercar now mixed in between himself and Brandon Gant. He's comfortably just circulating around Road Atlanta, not having to worry about anyone in front or behind him at the moment to challenge for his lead here in GT. Very cool, calm and collected is one of the Bentleys in front of him. It's Craig Dans that's gone off. The last thing I want to do is follow him through there. Is one of the hypercars goes around the outside. I think that was the O93, wasn't it? Yes, that's the Glickenhaus, if not mistaken. Here's Simon Subic, who started alongside Ahmed Abdullah, but unfortunately now dropped down to 15th overall, and behind Brandon Gant, which is great news for Brandon Gant, because of course he will be scoring the points that he needs to be walking away GT champion at the end of this race. George Angelidis, who is in contention as well for a championship here in this race. However, he needs to... Well, he's actually in the GT teams, isn't he? Yes, he is. So he needs to score 1 point for his team to ensure they are victorious at the end of this race. So that may be another championship wrapped up. So the only championship that could possibly go to the next race is Hypercar AM and GT AM, and possibly Hypercar as well. But as we're running at the moment, it looks like we'll be crowning a champion in Hypercar unofficially at the end of the 100 minutes around Road Atlanta here. 4.1 kilometre circuit, Neston, Brazelton, Georgia, providing plenty of action all the way through some of the most iconic corners as well in American motorsports, including the S's that we've just gone through there with Tom Lane, who seems to be struggling a fair bit here on the McLaren, just trying to get used to it, because of course he's been racing in the Ford Mustang over the past couple of weeks, or better yet, not weeks, but races as such here in the Virtual World Sports Car Championship. And switching over to the McLaren, making it slightly easier on himself to secure a victory as well here around Road Atlanta. Deciding to switch out to a car that's probably a little bit better at handling corners compared to a Mustang here. Doesn't want to overcook the throttle and lose in and potentially lose a championship here, because of course him and Jamie Zalewski locked in battle at the moment. Now it looks as if Tom Lane has the advantage for the time being, but not by much, because 1/8 of a second back is his closest rival, Jamie Zalewski, in the Aston Martin. Zalewski struggling here ever so slightly, sticking with him, but not being able to find a way through here. It's following his way around, following that McLaren as much as he can, about separated by about 2 car lengths between the two of them. The Aston Martin does close up the gap though through the corners. It looks to be a much tighter package on that Aston Martin compared to the McLaren 720S. And they're up now towards turn 6 and 7. This has been quite a hot spot here as well. Just note that we haven't had any yellow flags waving in it. Oh, we have the 093 into the pit lane. Now this would be strategy, I have a feeling, because we're now into the first, almost the first half hour of the race. Like, as soon as I say we haven't had a yellow flags roll, we'll get one in sector 1 as soon as I say that. So Maximilian Pozravsky is in the pit lane here for the first time, and he's come in with 27 minutes of the race elapsed in the Hypercars. So that would mean he needs to come in at least 3 times to go all the way to the end. But he's going to have to be very frugal in the last stint to ensure he doesn't have to come in again. No. He has to be extremely frugal if the math is correct. If he's coming in every 27 minutes out of 140 minutes, rounding it up to 30 essentially, and then we can deduct whatever time we do 30. So if it's 30 will be 6, that's 1 hour. Then another 30 is 1 minute 30 plus 10. So give or take around 9 to 10 minutes. Oh, he's going to have to be very careful on some of these stints as well. I have a feeling Maximilian might have come in a bit too early. Well, he's gone in and out of the pit lane pretty fast. Brian Hall, though, is in the pit lane as well here for the first time in his starry night. Now, it looks to be they're not spending too much time in the pit lane, so he might have just taken a slightly lighter load of fuel to maximise his chances, but of course he will have to come in at least 2 to 3 more times. I think he'd like to come in just 2 more times, but I have a feeling he may need to come in 3 more times here as off goes Brian Hall. And you can just see in the background, Ahmed Abdullah, we've got another driver in the pit lane as well. So it looks to be this is sort of the first cycle here. So anywhere between 27 and I have a feeling about 32 minutes is when we'll start seeing all of the drivers sort of come in. So about, give or take, a 5-minute pit window here for everybody. Of course, a lot of them probably going to leave it towards that more of that 32 to 33 minute mark as we've got Adam Gray facing the wrong direction on the exit of pit lane. Now, he hasn't come in the pit lane. He's actually already done one pit stop already here, and he's looked to have got his rear wing fixed. As Wayne Hutchinson, who we saw facing the wrong direction not too long ago, is into the pit lane. As out of the pit lane now comes one of the 911s. That's Timon Subic. So started on the second row of the grid. Wayne Hutchinson from 11th overall is in the pit lane. Here's Adam Gray. Not had the best race here so far, but of course it is a marathon, not a sprint. He still has an opportunity here to be on the podium in class in GTM. He needs to push a little bit more and be a little bit more careful on the exit of some of the corners. But of course, here for the first time this season, enjoying his time out there on track as James Bowders is out, and also almost into the path there of the championship leader. Oh, into the pit lane have come the two GTM protagonists at the same time. Tom Lane and Jamie Zaleczki have come in at the exact same time. So Jamie Zaleczki will momentarily take the lead of the GTM category, and Wayne Hutchinson has a penalty. Now, why has he incurred that penalty, I wonder? Was he speeding on pit lane, or has he done something else wrong? Now, I want to say on our screen we saw him in a different pit box, but that could just be the game double stacking, and of course they could be both using the same pit box essentially. That's one reason, but I have a feeling it's for another reason. I think it's a speeding violation in the pit lane. I think that's what he's been pinged for. As Tom Lane is released from his pit box, he's added some fuel, possibly some tyres, and Jamie Zaleczki, more importantly, gets out before him. Now, that is certainly the undercut, if I don't say so myself, because, and interesting enough, they've done the undercut in the pit lane as well. It usually happens on track, but Jamie Zaleczki has managed to get out ahead of his closest rival. What a strategy that was. Fantastic stuff there from Jamie Zaleczki and his team, of course. George Anthony is in the pit lane. Brandon Gatt is also in the pit lane as well. There you can see in his Nissan GTR closer to the screen. There is Wayne Hutchinson doing a drive-through penalty here. So indeed, I think this is for speeding in the pit lane. Now, of course, what he doesn't want to do here is do the exact same thing, because that can be very, very costly if he's going to speed again in the pit lane. The last thing he will do is have to come in for the second time here. So the first pit stops for all the drivers are currently underway. We are now approaching that sort of 33-minute mark here. So I think I was slightly off with my window of strategy. So it kind of started with 27 minutes elapsed. I had predicted it would have been about 32 minutes elapsed, but that's 5 minutes that they would have come into the pit lane. But I think we still have a few drivers that have not come in. Ben Borman is in, Gilles Lalonde is in by the looks of it. Gilles Lalonde is actually working his way out. Dan Kirby, the race leader, is in as well. When do we see Jerry Chen and John Wan come in? Now, those two are at the top of the track. There is Ross Smith for the first time, and actually that 33-minute window might be closer than I thought it was. So it looks like between 27 and 35 minutes. Let's extend that kind of statistic there. Let's increase that gap that we think the drivers will do their stints for around Road Atlanta here. And then we can kind of calculate how many stops we can kind of do in that time. So if we're doing 35s, that means we will do 2 pit stops essentially. One at the 35-minute mark, one at 1 hour and 10 minutes elapsed, and then one more at, oh no, that would mean only 2 pit stops actually. They have to be mighty frugal on the third stint. Okay, now this is very interesting, this strategy. So the drivers that have come in later, that have stretched out to about 35 to 36 minutes per stint, they would be able to do this on a 2-stop strategy. Those ones who came in before, towards that kind of 27 to 30-minute mark, will have to do it with 3 stops. And they have the advantage, of course, at the end. They can go a lot faster, they can use more of their car up, they can carry less fuel, so the car will be lighter. Plus they'd have fresher tyres, which means they can go faster at the end. at the same time, the cars that only do the two-stop strategy will have less fuel on board, so they'll be lighter. However, their tyres will be older and will have less grip. So, very interesting strategies being played out here today. We'll have to keep a close eye on those strategies, as John Uwan is in the pit lane, as is Jerry Chen from 2nd and 3rd overall. So, both CMS Pro Teams cars there, really extending that fuel mileage window as long as they can here, and it's exactly what they need to do anyway to ensure one of their two drivers could be crowned champion today. If not, if John Uwan finishes 2nd or better, they will be crowned, or better yet, will be crowning a victor of the championship all the way in Bahrain in a couple of weeks' time. So we're edging closer now to the 40-minute mark here. So it looks like a lot of the cars here are slightly less, or sorry, are slightly more frugal on fuel, including the Pagani. Now that's one car I wouldn't have expected to be frugal at all. I would have thought with that V12 it'd be consuming so much more fuel compared to the Toyotas. And it looks to be Walter de Bruyn has managed to come in a lap after the second of the Toyotas has come into pit lane, as we see Adam Gray having another issue out there on track. So 36 minutes of racing has been successfully announced, but successfully is, let's say, because we haven't had a safety car yet or any other major instances, but we've had a lot of yellow flags, a lot of drivers going off, mowing the lawn, etc., etc. We've even had one car behind the wall, and I think we actually have two cars that are not out, but are spending a lengthy time either in the garage or the pit lane, as John Mayer in the second of the Acuras is in. Now, it's actually saying we may have more drivers currently in the pit lane, or sorry, in the garage, as Wayne Hutchinson is shown as in the garage after his pit stop penalty, which I presume was for speeding in the pit lane. Jelle Hegelin for JR Racing, actually both JR Racing Corvettes are in the garage, as is Mike Boyce, Jet Spitiak as well in the pit lane after his mega drive at the beginning of the race to gain no less than 10 places in just 3 laps. Absolutely phenomenal drive from Majek. It's really unfortunate, and unfortunately his car is in the garage. Now I think that concludes the pit stop cycle. So we started at 27 minutes and we kind of went over there to 37 minutes. So very interesting strategies. Around 10 minutes can have affected the strategies of all the teams. Now of course the teams that have come in later have the advantage because they will only have to come in once more. But while their cars will be lighter because they'll be carrying less fuel, their tyres will be older in their third stint. The other cars that have come in earlier will have to do 3 pit stops, most likely. Some of them may be able to stretch it a little bit longer to push it to just 2 and only have 3 stints, but I think some may do 4 stints here, and of course in that 4th stint they might put a set of fresher tyres on, they'll put less fuel in so the car will be lighter, have more grip, and that will basically bring them back into contention. However, with an extra pit stop, it's going to be quite a tough ask, because the pit stop, of course, is not going to be 1 second, is it? It's going to be a couple of seconds, a couple of tenths of a second, if not more. And plus, they have to take into consideration, what if they get penalised? What if they're going too fast in the pit lane? What if they make a slight mistake? What if there's an issue somewhere else? This is all going to play into the hands of strategy, and it's also going to play in the hands of those who are fighting for a championship. They may be looking at what other teams have done and think, okay, I'm going to see if I can stretch my fuel window out a little bit more. However, the darkness is now starting to descend here around Road Atlanta. Over the past 40 minutes, it's been clear skies with the sun hanging way up there, and it's slowly starting to dip down, and it looks like the headlights have come on officially as you now go into dusk here, where things will get a little bit trickier. The sun hanging lower in the sky, so in some of the corners it's going to be starting glinting in the eyes. Oh, there's a Lamborghini facing the wrong direction. I think, was that one of the SCV 12 that was facing the wrong direction? Was it Brian Hall that was facing the wrong direction, or was it Eric Mona? Not quite sure who that was. 10th overall. It was Eric Mona, because of course now it's showing him that he's back up to speed again. It wasn't Brian Hall, so apologies to all fans. And apologies to the Hall Brothers Racing team for the fans that are watching at the moment. It's not the Starry Night. It was the other Lamborghini that was facing the wrong direction. Eric Mona, one of the 2 drivers that's actually in contention here for a championship as well. So that's going to put him at a deficit here. As Alessio Neto a little bit too hot through the S's. carrying way too much speed there and just couldn't control the car. He did a good job to save it, but just couldn't maintain the speed, so unfortunately loses a bit of ground here as he successfully elapsed now the first 40 minutes of racing. One pit stop already underway and completed. So the pit window or the pit strategies are kind of now starting to unravel themselves here now. Since we've hit the first 40 minutes elapsed, let's have a look at who is leading what category. Dan Kirby, your race leader here, of course, leading in the Hypercar Pro category in the 008. In second position is the Glickenhaus, Maximilian Kukovaki overall, and he is leading in the Hypercar AM category ahead of Jerry Chen and Ross Smith, who's methodically carved his way through. Wayne Hutchinson, unfortunately, they're out. So you see the DNF by his name. Let's go back to the Hypercar quickly because, of course, Brian Hall running in second, with Gilles Dolan running in third position in that category. In GT, it's this man right here, Ahmed Abdullah, in his Ferrari 488. He's 11.4 seconds up the road. He's been leading since the get-go and hasn't put a foot wrong at all, actually. Hasn't Ahmed Abdullah. No signs of any stoppages or issues for Ahmed Abdullah anywhere on track. And then in the second position in GT is Brandon Gant, looking strong here, and a strong point finish. If he finishes where he is right now, he will secure the championship in GT. George Angelinas is in third position overall in the GT category. We just switch the camera over to possible championship leader at the end of the race here. In GT AM, it is Timon Suvic, in his Porsche, leading by 5 seconds to the good. At the moment, you can see him just behind George Angelinas there. Over Jamie Zalewski, who got the jump on Tom Lane in the pit lane. Valiant job there from the team and driver to get the jump on Tom Lane as well, because of course it was Lane who came first, then Zalewski followed in the GT category, and there is Tom Lane tucked behind him. So this battle will continue to rage on, and is that Jamie Zalewski who's run wide through the corner. This could be an advantage gain for the McLaren, but unfortunately for Tom Lane, he had that's Jerry Chen in the middle of them, and better yet, Tom Lane has fought back. Thank you very much, Jerry. I will follow you through, and you've given me second place and potentially the lead in GT AM championship points. No, he'd be leading, but he'd have 1 point between himself and Jamie Zalewski if the race were to end now. Let's just double check the point standings for those two. As per what we saw earlier on in the broadcast. So back to the action here. Night has officially descended on the track here. The lights are ablaze and now adds the extra degree of difficulty here at night. While the track does have sufficient lighting in certain areas, a lot of it is quite dark, and the only way to illuminate the track is via the high intensity headlights on each of the vehicles here. You see what a lighting rig set up through the S's, but of course it doesn't provide that much lighting. It's still quite dark out there. So of course they have to rely on the headlights and of course the brake lights of the cars that are in front of them. And of course, with how Road Atlanta is, with the crests all over the place, the tight and twisty corners, the long straights, with the kinks in the middle of them as well, they provide quite a challenge, especially at night. So drivers have to be extra careful here around Road Atlanta. So as it gets darker and darker here around Road Atlanta, the degree of difficulty intensifies. You can see there one of the hypercars getting wrong. That's a second place hypercar overall as well. Getting it wrong, that's Maximilian Kudravaki, who unfortunately just misses his braking point there and has to take through the grass. That of course put him at a deficit. However, he's still 32 seconds up the road from his closest rival, so he keeps his Glickenhaus STG pointing in the right direction. Now, the thing is for Maximilian, now we haven't seen him much in the championship, if at all, come to think of it, here to sort of upset the party for the likes of John Uwan, who would like to be further up the order, because of course without him in the mix, he will be scoring essentially an extra position. And there's Jason Whitehead who's coming into the pit lane. Now, wonder what's happened here to Jason Whitehead. Is this another unfortunate DNF here for Jason Whitehead? I know he's had issues in the past. No, he's got going again. So that was just a brief visit to the pit lane for him. So we have 26 drivers currently circulating. We should have had 31, but unfortunately Wayne Hutchison, Wheeler Hedgelin, Mike Boyce, Jet Kazwiak and Roland Hagenas unfortunately out of the race here around Road Atlanta. So unfortunately we'll not be seeing those 5 drivers out. They're all classified as DNFs here. So we're looking at George Angelidis, currently circulating 14th position overall, and he is currently 3rd in class behind Ahmed Abdullah, Brandon Gant. Just behind him is Timon Suvic, who is the leader in GT AM and challenging here for a possible podium finishing position overall in GT, looking to upset the GT drivers. A great drive during practice and qualifying actually for Timon Suvic. Wouldn't have expected him to be sharing the front row of the grid in GT with the likes of Ahmed Abdullah, who's been rather quick all day, but Timon Suvic, a great drive so far in the first sort of half of the race here. Racing there for 100 minutes and actually fast approach that sort of halfway point. We've got a mighty quick Jesko, and that's going to be mighty tight through that corner. Timon Suvic almost picks up one of the Koenigsegg Jeskos. I think that's Jason Whitehead that was trying to get through as well after his earlier visit to the pit lane. It was indeed, and that could have been absolute calamity for those two. It would have certainly ruined the race of Timon Suvic. As through goes the Koenigsegg Jesko, and now up behind George Angelidis. Now, Timon Suvic, of course, wants to stay with that Koenigsegg and try and follow him past George Angelidis to take 3rd overall in the GT category, but unfortunately not going to happen. And loses quite some ground. You see just behind them was one of the AMRs. Here is Ross Smith, currently circulating 9th position. In contention for a championship. He's actually 3rd overall in class as well. Oh, and around goes Maximilian Kudravaki again here at the night time and through the S's, and Alessio Neto collects his bump back rear there, and that causes his rear bumper. Sorry, that's not the rear bumper, that was the rear spoiler that came off. So contact there after a brief spin for Maximilian. Contact with Alessio Neto, who's now gone off again through turn 5. Yes, that would be turn 5 there. Now, has he also got damage on his Bentley? No doubt he would, if the contact was severe enough to take off the rear wing of Maximilian. Now, he stopped in the gravel and he's gone straight to the garage here. Now, is that car going to retire? No, it's gone into the garage. It does not say DNF, though. So repairs underway to have that car fixed. Maximilian is also in the garage. And around he goes as well. Now, it's saying that he's in the pit lane and he's not out on track. Unless this is a replay of what happened, because he spun going out of turn 4, by the looks of it, after the S's. Lost it through the corner. Unfortunately, came back on track just in front of Alessio Neto. Alessio was cresting the corner, had nowhere to go, and unfortunately just picked up the rear bumper there, the rear spoiler, excuse me, of Maximilian. Now this puts Max at a real disadvantage because Brian Hall, Gilles Lalande has gone through into third and fourth respectively. Or sorry, second and third respectively. Was that another car that went off as well? Here, the nighttime really playing dividends here for the drivers. Now Alessio Neto is shown as a DNF, unfortunately. So more drama there for Alessio Neto. The opening stage of the race not going his way at all, and unfortunately now the second half of the race is not going his way at all because that car has been retired from the race. And into the pit lane comes Adam Gray, another one of the drivers who's had his fair share of issues. Now this will be his second pit stop, because of course remember he came in much earlier compared to the rest of the field. And there he is, you can see still the Scuderia Glickenhaus still repairing that car. And off he goes, and that's put him in a massive deficit. He's gone from second to 10th position overall. And that is a massive drop as well. He was very strong, was Maximilian. Now this is good news for Jean Ouan because of course he's now moving to fourth overall in the race here, which puts him 2 places behind where he needs to finish to ensure that he can take the title fight to the last race of the season. Now John Ouan is the last car actually left on the lead lap. He is a minute though behind the race leader. More importantly, he's 4.7 seconds adrift from Gilles Lalande, who in turn is 20-ish seconds back from Brian Hall. So what John Ouan needs is he needs either his teammate or Brian Hall to have a mistake or an incident similar to that of the man that was in second not too long ago. Because of course what John Ouan needs is he needs to finish second or better to take this title fight to Bahrain at the beginning of November here in a couple of weeks' time. And he will desperately be trying to secure that second place as soon as possible. But however, I think what he's going to have to try and do now is he's going to have to try and do it in the second pit stop. Oh, more contact between Jerry Chen and is that Craig Dans that he's had an issue there with in the Bentley by the looks of it. Craig, now those two are working their way out of the S's and towards the top. So Jerry Chen is 6th overall. Now, what car is in close proximity? Yes, it was Craig Dans that he had an issue. Now, is Craig Dans crabbing at the front? Has he got an issue? It looks like he's somewhat struggling to keep that car going in a straight line. It's sort of kind of squirreling a little off to the right there on the straightaway going down towards turn 10A. He's going to have to bring that car in because I fear he has damage on that car. So I have a feeling Craig Dans is going to come into the pit lane. Now he's currently 20th overall. He's not in contention for a podium here around Road Atlanta as he rides the curves as much as he can. It does not go right. No, he does not go right there to dive into the pit lane. So he's going to stay out. But Jerry Chen, though, on the other hand, has actually come in by the looks of it. Or at least according to the timing screen. Well, he's just gone in now. Very interesting that Jerry Chen has to come in, but the Bentley of Craig Dans does not. Now, I do know that the Bentley is essentially a yacht here on land. I wouldn't have thought it would have been that strong, though, in comparison. Yellow flag waves in Sector 1 here in the second half of the VWSC penultimate round here. The 100 minutes of Road Atlanta.
timing screen has decided to update me that Jerry Chen is indeed in the pit lane. And this, of course, is going to cost Jerry Chen some time. At least benefits Maximilian Podravsky, because, of course, he struggled not too long ago when he had contact with Alessio Neto, which may or may not have been his fault, because he did lose it through the S's, and unfortunately Alessio Neto had nowhere to go, and it has cost Alessio Neto the race. Now, interesting enough, has Craig Danz's timing gone grey here on my screen? No, it hasn't. He's still circulating in 20th position. So he is still out there. However, for this man right here, Jerry Chen, he's had to come in the pit lane and he's lost at least 2 positions, because Maximilian Podravsky has gone now into 8th position. Actually, he's made his way past Eric Monet, that's why. As he now attempts to work his way up the order, Gilles Lalande set to personal best that time round, a 1:10.651. Johnny Wan also set to personal best as well, as he is in hot pursuit of that Aston Martin AMR. The gap there of 4 seconds. Now, what does this mean on my timing screen? Next to Jerry Chen. Oh, Jerry Chen may have a penalty as Eric Moynier hits the wall. And where has he lost that? That is through Sector 2 by the looks of it. Now, I do wonder what Jerry Chen has a penalty for. I have a feeling that might be for contact. Is he the reason as to why he had to come in the pit lane? And that was his second time in the pit lane as well, and he's just gone off as well. And he's come into the pit lane, so I presume it's a drive-through penalty that he has to do, or he's doing his 3rd pit stop. Let's wait and see. Does he go all the way through, or will he stop at his pit box? No, he will drive all the way through. Oh, Stephen Boyce is off as well. Stephen Boyce is off, and that looks like the entrance exit of turn 10A that he's gone off at as well. That's quite an interesting place that he's done that too. As Jerry Chen does his drive-through penalty. No. Is it a stop-and-go penalty? No, he's gone through. Who's that in the pit lane there? No, he's out. Screen is all over the place here, because one screen tells me that he's in the pit lane, the other shows me that he's in the pit lane, but the timing screen says that he's out on track, which he is, because there he is. So it was a drive-through penalty, which I presume was for the contact, or it was for the pit lane. It was the pit lane speed. Now, it has actually shown on the screen what exactly it's for. But he is served his penalty as Stephen Boyce runs wide again on the exit of turn 7 by the looks of it. And just behind him was Jerry Chen, who also almost ran wide. Behind them is not Jason Whitehead, it is the other Koenigsegg that's a bit further up the order, not Ross Smith, it's Ben Borman, isn't it? Yes, it is. Who, of course, he was locked in battle with not too long ago as well. So 40 minutes left on the clock here. It'll be about time. Oh, as Walter de Bruyne loses it. Now, that's very uncharacteristic of Walter de Bruyne, and it's the second time as well he's lost it. Now, he's lost that through turn 6, by the looks of it, because that's their very short right-hander there at turn 7. No. Yes, that was turn 6 that he lost it at. Just after the S's. That's how easy it is to lose it here on Road Atlanta. It seems to be the darkness has definitely added that degree of difficulty, because it seems to be a lot of drivers are struggling here with the low lighting conditions. So 40 minutes remaining officially on the clock here for Dan Kirby, who's looking to secure his championship here in the 2022 season of the Virtual World Sports Car Championship at Road Atlanta, excuse me. Road America happened a couple of weeks ago with Road Atlanta. Of course, with enough points and outscoring Johnny Wan here, who is now actually in 3rd position. So Dan Kirby has to be a little bit difficult, as there he is riding the curbs. It was Dan Kirby, and that's going to put him in a deficit. Now, he's shown us 52 seconds up the road from Brian Hall, but Johnny Wan is only 13 seconds adrift from Brian Hall at the moment. So the pressure is certainly going to be on here around Road Atlanta. Well, the timing screen is showing me 15 seconds. Our screen in front of me is showing me 20.5 seconds is the gap between the two of them. As there's Eric Moyne, who loses it just going through turn 10B, just before turn 11. He was too early on the gas there. As Brian Hall comes in the pit lane. Now, for Johnny 1, this is where he needs to capitalise. He needs to secure second position, and he needs to hold on to it now in this next set of pit stop cycles here. Ahmed Abdullah is also in the pit lane by the looks of it, in the Ferrari 488. He relinquishes the lead of GT to Brandon Gant, and there you just saw Ahmed Abdullah go through. Simon Sudik is in as well. Relinquishes second position in the category, in GT AM that is, to Jamie Zalewski. Tom Lane has somehow found a way to get George Angelidis between himself and his closest rival, which is great news for him because he is now in second overall in GT behind Brandon Gant, and he is leading GTM, which means he's adding more points to his championship hunt here, which means he will be the benefactor of going into the final race with more points. He'll be the championship leader leaving Road Atlanta here today. And there is the McLaren 720S. Now remember, him and Zalewski came in at the exact same point in the race. We predict that will be within the next sort of 5 minutes as Brian Hall now is out on track. Now, if we end the race right now, Daniel Kirby would not be champion. He would have to wait till Bahrain to secure his victory in the 2022 Virtual World Sports Car Championship, as Johnny 1 has cycled his way up into second position at the moment, but he is only 2 seconds up the road from Gilles Lalande, so we have to be very careful, this Johnny 1, to keep that Gilles Lalande Aston Martin AMR behind him. There he is right now. Of course, his teammate running out in front. He'd like to say, come on, Dan, wait up, man. Let's do this as a team effort. But they've already secured the team championship. What they're fighting for now is the overall victory for the drivers category. And there is contact with one of the Porsches. Now, that's not Timon Subic, because he has the white and black Porsche. And that was a little bit too close there on the front straight. Now, who was that was punted off like that? I have a feeling that's Eugene Mazur that was thrown off track, and that is George Angelidis, and that seemed to be contact. 100% contact, because George Angelidis was around the outside of the Porsche, and of course the stewards will be looking into that, and that's maybe why we're looking at the replay more than once, as there is that stricken Porsche, and it was Eugene Mazur who unfortunately had that contact. Tom Lane is in the pit lane. Now, does he relinquish the lead? Yes, he does, to Jamie Zalewski in GT AM. So the points favour has gone back the way of Jamie Zalewski. However, the Stardust Autosports driver does owe us a pit stop, as Tom Lane presumably has done his second and final pit stop. He's now officially into his third stint here of the race. And as soon as we say that, Jamie Zalewski in the Aston Martin is currently in the pit lane. Now, this should give the lead of the race back to Tom Lane in the GT category, because he's currently now circulating through... He's through sector 3, is he? Yes, he would be. He is the 17th place car overall. And there he is now. So he isn't quite in sector 3. He is working his way through turn 8. So the timing screen is slightly different to what we're seeing here on camera. Zalewski's in the pit lane, and now can Tom Lane now get the undercut on Jamie Zalewski, as Zalewski did to him in the first round of pit stops here. Through the penultimate corner, Jamie Zalewski's moving out of the pit lane already. So he's trying to minimise his gap and time lost to his closest rival of Tom Lane. And the good news is for Jamie Zalewski, the undercut has not worked, and there is an Acura NSX of John Mayer in between himself and his closest rival. Yellow in sector 1. Someone's had an issue somewhere. Presumably someone's going in the wrong direction as the sparks fly underneath the left front there of Jamie Zalewski. That's just how low down that car is. There's Stephen Boyce getting it mixed up there with Bowden, or Bowders, excuse me. Oh, and Stephen Boyce unfortunately loses it there. Takes to the runoff road. And unfortunately, we'll have to try again at a later stage. And the good news is he was not in contention for a podium finish position at the time, although it is possible. As Ross Smith, Kia liveried Koenigsegg is through. George Angelidis is in the pit lane, and let's see a replay, I presume, of Stephen Boyce getting it wrong here. That is the Eric Moyne Lamborghini SC V12, excuse me. Here he is through turn 10A, and he just misses it, carries too much speed through the corner, and has to take to the runoff area, almost in front of John Uwan as well. That could have been disastrous there for one of the championship protagonists in the hypercar category. But luckily for him, Eric Moyne did not join the track in front of him. Now we're looking at one of the AMG GT cars here, a little bit further down the field, not having the race that he'd like to here around Road Atlanta. Has to take off to the emergency track there through the S's. There's Peter Meyer there, who had to take the emergency route. Ben Borman is in the pit lane. Just in front of him goes Jerry Chen. Now this is the third official pit stop for Jerry Chen, because of course he had to come in before to repair some of that damage to his car with a contact with Ileso earlier today in his Bentley. Now very busy pit lane here. This should be the final pit stops for these drivers as they're coming in as late as possible. Craig Dans is in the pit lane. Jerry Chen is in the pit lane. Another driver's just worked his way out. There's Ben Borman, who's just left the pit lane there. As things now start to heat up here in the middle of the night around Road Atlanta. Looks exactly the same time as it is outside my window right now, because it's almost the middle of the night here as it is here at Road Atlanta at the moment. So the time of day has caught up, at least to my time zone, that is. It's John Uwan does his best lap of the race so far with a 1:10.660. It is still, though, 1.4 seconds slower than Dan Kirby's best time in the sister car for CMS Pro, the Toyota GR010. As Dan Kirby continues to extend his lead here, the gap is almost a minute. Now, as Dan Kirby is halfway through Sector 1, John Uwan is not even halfway through Sector 2. That is how close the battle is between these two. Or maybe we should use the term far, because that's how far the battle is between these two. And the gap is quite significant. But for John Uwan, he just needs to settle in second position. He needs to keep this rhythm up, and he needs to secure this second place to make sure that he can take the fight with his teammate all the way to Bahrain in a couple of weeks' time. Here is, now I wonder if this is the contact between Eugene Mayer and George Angelidis that we're getting a replay of, because here's Eugene Mayer through Eugene Mazur through the final corner. No, it isn't, because there's no George Angelidis in sight at the moment, is there? So this is not a replay, unless this is Mazur getting it completely wrong somewhere else. That's Stephen Miller behind him in the McLaren 720S. Haven't seen and spoken much of Stephen Miller as he's off into the grass zone. You can see a lot of the hoardings there through the S's have been knocked out, and for Ben Borman, pants definitely a different shade of white now. It's almost hits the back of Stephen Miller through the first part of the S's, manages to keep off of the back bumper there, as we momentarily just saw Eric Moyne pointing in the wrong direction. Not a great race for the Hypercar AM driver. He's got it plenty wrong through that first entry into the S's. Luckily keeps it all off track though. That may be one of the reasons as we had that very brief yellow flag through Sector 1. So there is Eric Moyne. Ross Smith is in the pit lane. I presume that will be for the second and final time in the race. There he is in the IKEA liveried Koenigsegg. Can't get any more Swedish than that, unless he's filled the tank up with Swedish meatballs. I would have said Swedish fish, but I'm quite sure they're not Swedish as such. They're actually an American sweet. As Eric Moyne is into the pit lane, one of the GTs is in the pit lane as well. It's Eugene Mazur, who is in the pit lane behind him. Just saw there, unfortunate drama for Eugene as well. All by his lonesome, just biding his time, having a great time driving around. Unfortunately, he was collected by George Angelidis on the front straightaway. There he is. No doubt that would be an incident that will be looked into. As Brian Hall is in. Now, this is not a scheduled pit stop here for Brian Hall. This is, where is he on the track? He's third overall. Now, it's saying that this is his second pit stop. I have a feeling this is his third pit stop at the moment. John Uwan, though, does owe us a pit stop. He's really extending the fuel window here in his Toyota. Now, it is Brian Hall's second pit stop. I would assume that would have been his third. I thought he came in earlier before. So a few drivers really extending this second fuel window out. This final part of the race here will be very intriguing with the strategies that will be played out. And it seems to be our little logbook here can be successfully thrown into the bin, because the strategies for the teams are quite different to what we had predicted. As John Uwan is really, as we said before, stretching us out. Stephen Miller and Stephen Boyce are into the pit lane for their second time. As, oh, John Uwan is shown has been in the pit lane as well. So he has done his second pit stop. We just missed that by the looks of it. But the good news is that he's managed to stay ahead of Gilles Lalande by 8.7 seconds, and he's keeping his championship hope here alive. As on the inside of Craig Dans goes the Stephen Miller driven McLaren 720S. So for John Uwan, really looking to take this championship fight all the way down to the wire. Yellow flag in sector 2. Now, who's had an issue in that sector? Again, sector 1 has been a hot spot. Peter Meyer is into the pit lane here, presumably the second time. There's Jamie Zalewski. Now, where is he in comparison to Tom Lane? There's Craig Dans, who said he was in the pit lane not too long ago, so he's done his second and presumably final pit stop. Jamie Zalewski still running in 15th position. He's 5.5 seconds up the road from Tom Lane. So, oh, is that Eric Moyne pointing in the wrong direction in sector 2? Behind, looking just at the exit there of the S's, that certainly looked like Eric Moyne pointing in the wrong direction. And it is Eric Moyne, the 11th place car overall, now going into the pit, going into the garage. More drama there for the the Hypercar Am driver, and unfortunately Eric Moyne is out. Eric Moyne is shown as a DNF. Are we going to get a replay here of what happened? Now, we didn't see exactly what happened. We just saw the Lamborghini facing the wall at the exit of the S's at turn 5. As this is not Eric Moyne, is it? Yes, it is. No, that's not. That's Brian Hall just in front of him. That's Jerry Chen. And that was Jamie Bowders that was just in front of him. Jerry Chen just losing it there, missing the braking point. Luckily not in the back of the Porsche. What we want to see is what happened to Eric Moyne and why he is out of the race. Jason Whited is in the pit lane as well for the second time. With 25 minutes remaining on the clock. Loses that to Jerry Chen. Down to 10th position overall does Jason Whited. Unfortunately for Eric Moyne, this is not good at all, because I have a feeling, remember from what we said before, that Hypercar Am, which Eric Moyne is currently in, is, well, he may be out of contention here for that possible championship win. However, if there are 3 points separating, and there are how many points to a victory? 32. and if he scores 1, it's a 3-point gap. Unfortunately, that means Eric Moyne will no longer be in contention for a championship as we head into Bahrain here at the end of Road Atlanta. Now, that is devastating for Eric Moyne, going from a possible championship to unfortunately fighting it out for 3rd overall in the championship. He is not shown as a DNF, or is he? He's not on the long list, so we're down now to 24 cars out of 31. So as Ross Smith said earlier in the show, that this is a race of attrition, and unfortunately for Eric Moyne, it has not gone the way that he'd like it to at all. He indeed is out of the race, and that is very, very unfortunate for him. We said we just saw him, the end of the S's pointing in the wrong direction, sort of this shot right here, way in the back. We saw it a couple of laps ago. We were looking at Jamie Zalewski working his way through, and unfortunately it was, whatever happened, it was enough to put him out of the race, which is a real issue here in the penultimate round of the Virtual World Sports Car Championship for 2022 here at Road Atlanta. Just over 23 minutes remaining on the clock. Actually, now it's under 23 minutes remaining on the clock. There's Maximilian Petravki. Unfortunately, he had an incident earlier on. He was running as high as 2nd position, but unfortunately, drama through the S's put him in a deficit. It was collected by one of the GT drivers. Unfortunately, he was clipped at the back. And look at this. This is the battle for the lead in GT-AM, just Jamie Zalewski and Tom Lane. Tom Lane much stronger in this McLaren as he's been in the Mustang, although he has been pretty strong with the Mustang, but decided to swap over to the much more agile McLaren 730S, and is now really taking the fight here to Jamie Zalewski to ensure that he will go into the final round with more points than Zalewski, to ensure he has a better chance of winning the championship in Bahrain. Of course, that'll be the 80 minutes of Bahrain that will take place in a couple of weeks' time. So we've got another replay coming up here. This is going to be a replay of Eric Moyne. No, this is Johnny Wan, who gets it wrong, going out of turn 10A. So unfortunately, just misses the point there, and he will have to. Well, luckily for him, he did not lose out to Gilles Lalande. He started to extend the gap enough so he wouldn't have an issue. As this is Stephen Boyce, who unfortunately gets it wrong as well. Hits the barrier but continues on through the grass, and that was just before turn 2. We seem to have got that wrong. That first section of the S's has been a hot spot. The exit of the S's has also been a hot spot. Turn 7, which we're looking at right now, has had its fair share of action, as has turn 10A. Of course, we did have that brief contact around, or on the front straightaway even. So here is Dan Kirby, fighting for a championship. It could have been easier, but unfortunately for him, John Uwan is in the right place to take it down to Bahrain, where they'll have to scrap it out for the title. But of course, with Dan Kirby out front, he's scoring maximum points, plus he has pole position, so he got that extra point as well for that all-important pole position. And that, of course, will play into the hands of Dan Kirby, because he will go into the final round with maximum points to his advantage. There is also a one-round drop, that will be dropped, where the points that was least scored. Oh, that is Maximilian Petravki again, who's had an issue. Is that through the S's, or is that up towards turn 6? Oh, it is through the S's as well. That is at the beginning of the S's as well, and that's very unusual to see it spin off there. We usually see it slightly earlier than that, but Maxim Petravki mixing up with the back markers, unfortunately getting it wrong. And here is a replay of Petravki. No, it's not. It's Stephen Boyce. So this is why Stephen Boyce went off. He worked his way through turn 7. There he goes. Backs it up into the wall. Unfortunately, has to fight back as Here is Craig Dans. Does he have a similar issue going through the exit of the S's? Yes, he does. Just slightly loses control, overcorrects it a bit too much, and almost collects Brian Hall through there. Good job from Brian Hall to avoid all of that as well, because that could have been absolutely disastrous for him. As it looks like the gap between second and third in the hypercar is closing up. According to... Oh, and it's not, because Gilles Lalande was a lot closer to the back bumper of Jean One not too long ago, but now that gap is extended up to 10 seconds almost again. Here is Gilles Lalande in the Soul AMR Pro. It's the Aston Martin Valkyrie AMR Pro. Looking like a very fast tennis court here. But saying that, it's still a beautiful looking car. The livery really adds to it as well. And that's contact there between Tom Lane and George Angelidis going through turn one. And is that Jamie Zalewski who will capitalise? Yes, it is, because Tom Lane took the lead of GTM. Got a little bit too close to the back bumper of George Angelidis. Now, the good thing is he hasn't taken him off. However, the stewards will be looking at that. Now, there is no position gained. In all fairness, Tom Lane has lost the position, and he has conceded the place, essentially, because he did not take that position away, as Johnny One is coming under pressure, by the looks of it, from the race leader. Johnny One is close to going a lap down. They've got a great gaggle here of GT drivers. Is that Timon Sulik lurking in the background? I think it is. Just tucked up behind Tom Lane. Yes, it is. That is Timon Sulik lurking, because this here, of course, is the battle for third overall in GT between Jamie Zalewski, Tom Lane and Timon Sulik. And George Angelidis is leading the pack at the moment. Oh, and that is contact between Tom Lane and Jamie Zalewski. Now, Tom Lane is slowed at the brow of turn 11. He has slowed down. He is conceding the position back to his rival. That is good sportsmanship, but however, the stewards will think differently of that, because it's also dangerous to follow track. Here we go. This is how hot it was between them. That is Zalewski on the inside of George Angelidis. Is there contact? No, there isn't. But there is contact here. There is slight contact between Zalewski and George Angelidis on the exit there of turn 10B. But for Zalewski, he was tagged into a spin by Tom Lane, with Tom Lane slowing down. And does Zalewski get the position back? No, he hasn't got the position back yet. So Tom Lane has slowed down enough to give Zalewski a chance to catch him. And has he gone through yet? No, he's still about 3 to 4 car lengths back. So that was quite interesting, that turn of events, and that's how close it gets when you have 4 cars vying for position. And who benefited the most? Timon Sulik benefited the most, because he was 4th in that train of cars. He is now 2nd and tucked up behind George Angelidis, and more importantly is that he will take the lead in GTM. And he's definitely laughing behind the helmet, because he saw all of that unravel and said, thank you very much, boys, I'm going to take 2nd position and the lead in GTM. Effect as well, wasn't it? Because George Angelidis was a little slower through the corner as round goes one of the Audis, and I have a feeling that was Adam Gray who went around. And here's Audi R8 LMS, as into the pit lane has come Maxim Pavlovsky, and of course he had a penalty, and I think that's for contact earlier on, which might explain why he had an issue. Briefly going across the grass there was Gilles Lalande, and that puts him in a deficit, because now, well, while he was circulating in 3rd, he's now no longer 3rd, he's now 5th overall, and now actually 7th overall. Oh, that's Maximilian Pavlovsky, sorry. It's Gilles Lalande who took a brief trip through the grass and is now just ahead of Maximilian Pavlovsky. Now, this is not a battle for position. There's Jamie Zalewski, and you can just see in front of him is Tom Lane. There'll be some words exchanged between these two. And I've just seen that Eric Moyne has been reclassified into this race. He's down in 17th, so whatever issues he had, presumably it's technical, he has fixed it, and he's now circulating again, which will bring him back into the championship fights in class, although he'll be at quite the deficit here, because Ross Smith and Jerry Chen are running in 2nd and 3rd in class, and Eric Moyne is 4th and quite a ways down. So it looks like it'll be quite a tough ask for him to challenge for a podium finishing position, as it looks to be going the way of Maximilian Podravsky, Ross Smith and Jerry Chen, who are all conveniently together on track. In a line in 7th, 8th, 9th respectively, and then down in 17th overall is Eric Moyne, 8 laps down from the race leader, and 6 laps down from Ross Smith and Maximilian Podravsky, and 5 laps down from Jerry Chen, by the looks of it. Here's Timon Subic, who capitalised earlier on and now is the leader in GT-AM. He was the pole sitter in GT-AM as well, so he earned that extra bonus point. It's a shame he's not close enough to vie for the championship here in GT-AM. As we're now into the last 15 minutes of the race. Now I wonder whose strategy is played out to perfection. I wonder if anybody's going to run out of fuel before the end of the race here, because that would be very, very interesting as we slowly wind down the race here. Of course, we'll end under the lights. There's Ross Smith looking to try and chase down Maximilian Podravsky, but it's going to be quite a tough ask. So the gap is 35 seconds between the two of them. And now 30 seconds. Here's Walter de Bruyn. He's had his fair share of issues here. Here's Pagani Imola, the only Pagani as well to be racing here this weekend. He's shown his 2 laps down from the race leader. 59 seconds now behind the driver, Gilles Lalande, in front of him. Here's up now, bumper of one of the Acuras. Now that is the sister car for George Angelidis, as he moves off the racing line to allow Walter de Bruyn through. Oh, we have an Audi facing the wrong direction, the entrance of pit lane. I have a feeling that was Adam Gray again, pointing in the wrong direction. Yes, it is. Needs to spin the car around. Luckily enough, he's on far enough away from the racing line, but he is in the pit lane, so if any cars are coming through, they're going to have an issue. And there goes his rear bumper again. Rear spoiler has fallen off. He unfortunately backs it up into the wall, so he'll have to come into the pit lane and change that to ensure the aero benefits of his car are not impacted. Here's Brian Hall, circulating 4th overall, and 4th in class as well in the Hypercar Pro category behind Ben Borman. Ben Borman was not expected to be 3rd here at all. He's kept it all together after some early drama. There he is in his Koenigsegg Jesko. 12.1 seconds adrift from the race leader of Dan Kirby. Sorry, in 2nd position. Right, it's Dan Kirby's teammate that leads, isn't it? Yes, because here is Johnny Wan. He's still mixing it up with his teammate Dan Kirby. Yes, he is. Dan Kirby's just up behind him. You wouldn't have thought his teammate would give him this much of a fight to stay on the lead lap. You would have thought he'd just move over and say, look, you're not the 3rd place, Carl, that's good. But obviously with Dan Kirby behind Johnny Wan, they can kind of work together, although Dan Kirby won't want that. But the team game essentially is to keep him ahead of the 3rd place car. A much tighter line from Dan Kirby. It's Johnny Wan doing everything he can to stay on the lead lap. He's making that Toyota as wide as a truck to ensure he does not go a lap down. But it looks like Dan Kirby will strike at any moment. And there is the move, is it? As Johnny Wan loses it through the exit of the S's. Dan Kirby not close enough to pounce. So Johnny Wan still stays on the lead lap here. Around Road Atlanta. About a car length and a half separating the two of them. It's just in front of them is Brandon Gant. Again, having a relatively incident-free race, as is this man right here, Ahmed Abdullah. He's enjoying the lead in GT, which briefly went to Brandon Gant not too long ago. There's Peter Meyer. He's had a few instances here and there, but he's still plodding along, battling it out with one of the Porsches, and it's just in front of him. Tom Lane now further back from Timon Subic, and now extending the gap between himself and Jamie Zaleczki. But I do wonder if the time that he gave back to Jamie Zalewski was enough. Will the stewards decide to slap a penalty on Tom Lane at the end? That needs to be served in the next race. There is Jamie Zalewski, and just in front of him, spun round, was the Audi R8 again of Adam Gray by the looks of it. That had the issue, a very similar issue to what Hutchinson had earlier on, although we didn't quite see that incident, but it happened in a similar place and was a little bit too early on the accelerator, spun the car around and unfortunately headed straight forward into the, behind the wall on the exit there of turn 7. It happened in front of this man right here, Jamie Zalewski. All wrong for him. Jason White currently circling in 10th position at the tail end of the Hypercar Pro category. Currently 7th overall in that class, further back from the rest of his camaraderies. And tucked behind Jerry Chen's yellow flag waves in Sector 1 here at Road Atlanta. Final 10 minutes of the race here, as there's Stephen Miller using up as much as car. Oh, and we've got another car as well in front of him. Was that the Audi of Adam Gray again having an issue? The 25th place car overall, I think that is Adam Gray, who is struggling there on the straightaway. Indeed he is, as he struggled all the way through on this lap. Now, it is not the issue with the vehicle, so he may be facing technical issues here, as he's staying off the racetrack, oddly enough, but he's continuing on now. He'll continue off the racing line as well to ensure he does not impact any of the other drivers that may be fighting for a championship or a win here around Road Atlanta. Now that car is going extremely slowly through all the corners. As you said, he's staying offline, which is great news. He's not impacting this battle here. Of course, this is for... Oh! Ahmed Abdullah is shown as a DNF. What has happened to Ahmed Abdullah? He had a perfect race going for him, and unfortunately now, with 10 minutes left in the session, it's showing as the DNF. That means the lead of GT will go in the hands of Brandon Gant. And I'll add more, and here he is now, he's slowing through the S's. Is this a technical issue for Ahmed Abdullah? And I cannot believe it's happened in the last 10 minutes. He pulls it to a stop through the S's, straight into the garage. Now, he did have a lap advantage, so whatever it is, if it's a technical issue, and he can sort it out now and not lose that lap, he will stay in the lead of the race. Brandon Gant is now officially in the lead of GT, and for Ahmed Abdullah, it is heartbreak once again here in the Virtual World Sports Car event. We did not predict that at all. Wonder if there is any mention of why that's happened. Now, this is not what we expected at all. Now, let's have a look. So, Roland Hagenas had the issue, his pedals are broken, unfortunately. Maximum was 36% max output, so that's what's happened to Roland. Mike Boyce is having an issue with a possible glitch, and unfortunately the engine is gone on his car, so it explains what happened to him. Timon Subic is in the pit lane by the looks of it, so he will not be fighting that with George Angelidis for a podium finishing position, but for Tom Lane, he was now moved up into 3rd position. That is all the updates that we have here. So we now know why Mike Boyce and Ron Hagenas are out of this race. But for the other drivers, including Ahmed Abdullah, we have no clue what has happened. And it can only be a technical issue. And again, unfortunately, an incredible drive from Ahmed Abdullah. But unfortunately, in the last 10 minutes, something has happened and it's cost him the victory as well in GT. It is handed the victory to Brandon Gant, and of course, even better for Brandon Gant because he needed to finish 7th or higher to secure victory and the championship overall in the VWSC GT category for 2022. Brandon Gant, if he were to finish the race now, he will be crowned champion at the end of this race here. So 4 minutes to go on the clock. It will give us enough time for 3, maybe 4 laps, depending on where the drivers are at the moment. We'll bring it into 140 minutes. Oh, sorry, 100 minutes of racing. Where did the 140 come from? 100 minutes of racing here. And there is Dan Kirby, the race leader, by 50 seconds to the good. So Johnny Wan has somehow managed to stay ahead of him and escape up the road as well. He's working his way through the S's and ahead of his teammate and of course his championship rival. Here's Ben Borman running in 3rd position, looking for a strong position to finish this here as well. Tom Lane is in the pit lane, interestingly enough, and he will lose 3rd overall to Jamie Zalewski by the looks of it. And he's come out. For some reason it's showing that he's in the pit lane, but yeah, he's on the track. This must be a timing glitch, that's why. Adam Gray is shown in the pit lane as well at the moment, but Tom Lane is definitely not in the pit lane. And, well, he's behind Jamie Zalewski, so he must have come in. So Jamie Zalewski now leads GT AM. Tom Lane is 2nd, Timon Subic is 3rd. So Zalewski will walk away with the advantage here in this race, and will walk away with maximum points. And of course, the championship will go down to the wire in GT AM. It will also go down to the wire in Hypercar Pro. In Hypercar AM, it will also go down to the wire, but GT is all wrapped up essentially here for Brandon Gant, who leads the category, and he's got a hypercar in between himself and his closest rival, plus he has the addition of a lap there too. Now the screen I'm looking at is showing me that Tom Lane is in the pit lane, so I wonder what screen I have in front of me that's late. Is it the timing screen, or is it the screen there? No, because he's bounced back on track. These glitches get weirder and weirder, I swear. Every time we play this, it gets weirder. Maybe it's my connection again, because last time I had no screens whatsoever. This time I have screens, so I shouldn't be complaining at all. Tom Lane sitting in 2nd overall in GTM. That's a good haul of points for him, but unfortunately it does not wrap up the championship, but it does bring it closer for at least himself and the Jamie Zalewski driven car that will take the fight straight to Boise, because of course Boise will not be with us in the final round of Bahrain, the 80-minute race that we have there. But for this man here, who will stay in contention for the win. For Brian Hall, though, unfortunately, not in contention for a victory in Hypercar AM. Sorry, in the Hypercar category, because it's Dan Kirby and John Uwan who are doing that battle. And of course, John Uwan is in 2nd, which is exactly what he needed. Didn't quite look like it was going his way at the beginning, but it looks like he's clawed back enough time. The strategy has played off, especially in that 2nd pit stop, to keep him in 2nd position and keep him in contention to go to Bahrain to crown a champion in Hypercar. Ben Borman has lost 3rd position to Brian Hall. He's shown his 2/10 of a second back, but it looks like there's at least 3 car lengths on our screen right now, separating the two of them. And with the final 60 seconds here of racing around Road Atlanta, yellow flag in sector 3. Someone's had an issue and gone off. I presume that's sort of towards the final corner. There briefly was a car pointing in the wrong direction. Couldn't quite catch exactly which one it was. It's the Mercedes AMG of Peter Meyer that had an issue on the exit of the final corner. That's the first. Haven't seen that. Here's Walter De Bruyn in his Pagani Imola. Incidents for him in the first half of the race, but for the second half of the race, it's pretty much gone rather cleanly for him. Very relatively incident-free as well. Here's the leader, though, in Hypercar AM, Maximilian Pratki. Ooh, and he shoves Ben Borman there. Almost pushes Ben Borman off track, and Ben Borman's not going to be happy with that, and he dives into the pit lane as well on the very last lap of the race. Across the line, though, will come Maximilian Pratki. I think that is a done race for him. Here's Ross Smith. He'll walk across the line in 2nd. Walk across the line, really? That's the analogy I was going to use there. No, he's not going to walk across the line or crawl across the line. He's going to methodically work his way across the line in 2nd. But he's got to be careful as he almost loses it there. Coming back of Peter Meyer's Mercedes AMG. And behind him, synchronized drifting there for himself and Dan Kirby across the line. Or at least the timing line is. Through sector 2. They go. Down towards 10A and 10B. So Ross Smith now through the final corner. I think he'll get an additional lap in because Dan Kirby is shown as just behind him. We saw Maximilian Patafsky go across the line. Dan Kirby, though, across the line and a well-deserved victory as well. Was not under pressure at all from the get-go. A lights the flag victory for Dan Kirby, but unfortunately, it is not a championship lights the flag victory at all, because unfortunately, he will have to take it down to Bahrain. It's John Uwan, who is currently working his way through the S's, managed to play the strategy to perfection, despite starting outside of the top 5. Off his way through the field, it didn't look like it was going his way at all because he circulated around the top 7 in that first half of the race, and then it came to the just before the second pit stop, third, second, and he managed to maintain that second position, and he will take the fight for the championship all the way to the last round of the 2022 Virtual World Sports Car Championship here, and we'll hold that in Bahrain at the 80 minutes of Bahrain as well in a couple of weeks' time. And as the rest of the field will work their way around Road Atlanta here for the final time. There's Ross Smith across the line and Brandon Gant. Final lap of the season for him, essentially, to wrap up the championship, which he does and he does it in style as well with a victory. A well-deserved victory as well there for Brandon Gant. Didn't put a foot wrong anywhere around the track, and he will net himself championship in GT. Oddly enough, we only have 3 finishers in GT: Brandon Gant, George Angelinas, and John Mayer. So that is one championship done and dusted. Now, the other championships are to be determined in Hypercar between Dan Kirby and John Uwan. In Hypercar AM, it is still Ross Smith who is in contention for that championship title at the end of the season. GT is all wrapped up, and in GTM, Jamie Zaleczki and Tom Lane will take it all the way to Bahrain here in the 2022 season of the VWSC Championship. So before we go, after that very thrilling race here we had at Road Atlanta, we will see if we can get a quick chat with the drivers, including the 4 winners. Brandon Gant, of course, will probably be the most elated of all the drivers here because, of course, not only has he won in class, he has also won the championship as well in GT. So he has nothing to worry about when he goes to Bahrain in a couple of weeks' time. He does not have to worry about fighting with anybody. He just has to worry about crossing the finish line. Actually, he doesn't even worry about that. He's just there to race and have a good time and possibly collect some more points in his brilliant championship campaign here in 2022. So we'll just allow some time here for the drivers to have a breather here before we bring them into the commentary box for one final interview here to get their thoughts about racing around Road Atlanta and how tricky it was as well at night, because that's when pretty much everything started to go wrong for a lot of the drivers, especially for Maximilian, who was very strong at the beginning of the race, but when darkness fell, that's when it started to all sort of unravel. And it looks like we have, waiting for us patiently, is Jamie Zaleczki in the GTM. Now, Jamie, that was quite a tough sort of second half of the race there. May have not gone the way you hoped it to, and of course that contact with Tom Lane definitely didn't help, but a good finishing result there, and of course you'll be taking the title fight in GTM all the way down to the final race in Bahrain.
Yeah, not exactly how I wanted the second half of the race to go, but I mean, we got the same outcome there at the end. I know Tom's saying he's sorry he murdered me there. I mean, we just all kind of stacked up on the edge that I tried to over under George, and I think George was ready for that, and it just kind of stacked up from there, and I got a little boop to the snoot, and around I went.
Yeah, it did look like that way, wasn't it? George Angelidis was, by the looks of it, was just not early enough on the accelerator there. You came in a little bit too hot right behind him, and of course you had nowhere to go because right behind you was Tom Lane. And of course, the one thing on Tom Lane's mind was, I want to win. I want to beat Zalewski because I want to be the points advantage holder when we go into the final race. But of course, that will be you. You will be going into the final race with maximum points.
Yeah, and with the straight line speed we're going to have at Bahrain, I'm definitely very glad that we finished ahead of Tom and we're going to go into the final round still ahead of him. Going to need every point I can get there. Just with the straight line speed on those long straights, it's going to be a bit of a challenge in the Aston.
Well, thank you, Jamie, so much for talking to us, and we'll see you in the next one, where we hope it will be just exciting as it is at Road Atlanta. Now we'll try to bring in Dan Kirby, the overall winner, and of course, a little bit of heartbreak for him because he was looking to wrap up the championship as a whole here, but unfortunately, with his teammate John Uwan finishing in second, it didn't look like that was going to happen, Dan, but unfortunately it did. But before we talk about that, let's talk about that victory, because that was an epic victory on your behalf.
Yeah, thanks. That was hard.
It certainly sounds like it was.
Yeah, this track is really tiring for that long.
Yeah, the S's were a key point for a lot of drivers, and it decided some battles out there that we had. But for you, it seemed relatively easy for us watching here in the commentary box and the course at home around the world. But you can't be happy. I mean, it is a 1-2 for the team, but you could have wrapped it up here, couldn't you?
Yeah, I don't really mind. It was fun.
I think if it was a different driver, I think you'd mind just a little bit, because it's Johnny Wan and he's your teammate. It's cool to have a 1-2. It's always what the team wants, isn't it? That 1-2 victory. But Dan, that was a great victory. Thank you so much for talking to us. And you do sound like you've had a very long race there, so I'll keep this nice and short, and we'll try and bring in the winner in the Hypercar AM. Dan, good luck for the next race in Bahrain. Let's see if you can clinch that championship.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So we'll just now bring in the overall winner in Hypercar AM, and we'll see as well if we can get the winner overall in GT quickly after this. And here is the winner in GTM. That was we already spoke to Jamie Gillespie, didn't we? Speaking now with Maximilian Petrovsky, who's joined us here now. Maximilian, it was very interesting in the first half of the race. You were the man to beat. You had the lead in the bag there in the Hypercar AM, but unfortunately when the sun set and the moon came out, things didn't go your way, did it? Especially the first parts of the S's.
Yeah, it was... I can only say what a race that was. I had quite a few problems in the S's with lap cars and over hypercars, of course. I hadn't really practiced at all for the race, so I didn't really have any kind of... I didn't really... I had to feel myself into it in the race. Then, of course, I had a bit of a crash, and I got a penalty, actually, in the pit stop, so I thought I lost it. I thought I was not in the lead in Hypercar anymore. I had no idea I was in the lead at the end, to be honest. So...
Well, for somebody that's had minimal practice, the way you showed and the speed that you showed here today, plus you had that penalty, your pit stops may have not gone the way that you wanted to either. You did a fantastic job there. A well-deserved victory for you there in the Hypercar AM category.
Thank you very much. I hope to... I hope that I'll be there again for the last race at Bahrain, I think.
Oh, yes, we will have the 80 minutes of Bahrain taking place in a few weeks' time. We hope to see you there as well. So thank you so much for talking to us. I don't know if we have Brandon Gann. I think he might be celebrating early already. I think he might be too busy to talk to us here. But from all of us here in the broadcast booth. Thank you so much for watching and joining us here for these epic races. We'll just hold on for a few seconds more to see if we can get a hold of Brandon Gant. Of course, with that epic win that he had, he locks up the championship in GT. So it's the only driver who is confirmed to be a champion before we go into the final race here of 2022 for the Virtual World Sports Car Championship. And as I said before, I think he's a little bit too busy celebrating his victory overall. So I have a feeling that is the end. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in a few weeks' time, because, of course, between the penultimate round and the end of the season here in the VWSC Hypercar and GT categories, we have, of course, 2 races for the 1991 series. So do join us for that, and thank you so much for watching.